Good morning, New York. This is the Jayson Buford Show. I'm your host, Jayson Buford. It is a cold morning in New York. We have my guy Trill Bro Dude here of the You Know Ball podcast.
Formerly of 808s and Bars
Yes.
fame, along with one Jayson Buford. This is the first time that we've potted together, just us, because you've come on streams and stuff before when we've done them, but I feel like this is the first time that we've potted together probably since 23. The last time, I remember the first time you came on You Know Ball was you came on to talk about a J. Cole album.
Yes.
So that must have been like 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
Then you came back on in 2023, and then you've come on streams here and there. But I'm always happy when we get to pod together. It's a nice throwback to 8 years ago. It's crazy that it's been that long, but
amazing. I feel like when we had that podcast, I'm just such a different person now than I was then.
Same.
Completely different person, like it's a completely different person. And that was like my first entry into podcasting. So that was it's just fun like having you to be full circle. We're
Same.
both doing really awesome, really cool shit. Like
Yeah.
dude, your podcast is awesome. Like the Ball is so sick and it's so funny and it's just 110% you, which is great.
So I actually, probably the thing I'm most embarrassed about the early podcast that we did was that I was not, I don't know if it's a thing in your 30s that you figure out, but I never really got the genius of Future when I was like 27 or whenever when we recorded that. And then when COVID hit, I just did like a huge deep dive on Future's discography, and now I'm like a huge Future stan. So if I ever go back and listen to any Future episodes, I was like not into Future, and now I'm like, it's the episode of It's Always Sunny where Danny DeVito is like, I get it now. Like,
Yeah.
I was just listening to Monster one day and was like, oh no, this guy's actually a genius.
Yeah, no, he's something that you have to really like lock your doors and just like really listen to and be alone for it.
Perfect
He's like
for lockdown. It was perfect for COVID.
He's very like Don Draper of rap too, where he's like he is a loner artist. Like he himself is a loner in his music. He's someone who's not comfortable anywhere. He's like really romantic, but a lot of what his music about is like romantic decay almost. And so I think like as a listener, you have to really hunker down and like be in Future's mindset and be in his headspace. He's
Definitely.
like one of those type of artists. Yeah.
Once you fully dive in and you immerse yourself in the Future experience, it is kind of inescapable how transcendent he is as an artist.
Who's the future of the NBA?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right?
I never really thought about that.
Because I always say Kobe's Kanye, LeBron Jay-Z.
Sure. Wow, yeah, no, LeBron Jay-Z is just, I mean, it's obvious that he looks up to Jay, and so it would have to be like a misunderstood KD, maybe?
That's a great one. Wow.
KD? Yeah, I feel like it has to be like a misunderstood guy who gets his flowers but still doesn't feel fully appreciated, and it has like the underdog mentality despite being one of the most successful, and also we know KD with all the extra stuff, with all the side stuff, and that's very Future coded. Also, I'm pretty sure KD's a big hip hop guy in general, and I'm pretty sure he's definitely a big Future.
He's like the only rapper he's like the only basketball player who listens to Mac Hami. Like, there's no way any other NBA player listens to the God Fahim or Mac Hami, and like,
he's still in the weeds. Like, I remember whenever Isaiah Rashad dropped his last album, he was the only basketball player I saw posting about that, and I was like, KD is one of one. The most online NBA player of all time. You have to relate to him in some capacity.
KD could be a commentator on like the Source magazine back in the day or whatever. If they had like, if the Source magazine had like online, like heavy online traffic, KD would have been like a commentator in the comments and stuff.
Absolutely. It is very funny that he likes Mac Hami is. You can't even like get his music.
Yeah,
he's, like, the least,
you have to literally be like one of 20 people to get his music.
How did Durant learn I guess he's one of the few people that can actually afford his $500 album.
Exactly. It could be that, but I also think there's something about like the people he keeps around him are very like regular, everyday kind of people. Sure. He's got that like DMV kind of thing where it's
like Eddie Gonzalez. And
yes.
I know a few people that know him just from New York, and they said that he hangs with regular people like more often than he will hang out with like celebrities, which is another thing I think I really respect about Kevin Durant is that like he doesn't he definitely lets things get to him a little bit too easy, probably because he is immersed in the everyday world, unlike many people that completely disconnect and try to be like above it. But he also is seemingly pretty down to earth for someone who's like a mega celebrity.
Yeah, one of the only things I think, or one of the early things about him that I realize is like he is somebody who's not very eager to play the like media game, you know? Like, yeah, he has like Rich Kleiman in his as a business associate. You know, I remember he had that stretch where he was on the Simmons podcast a lot, but he's not like being with the media and trying to forge his own narrative within the media. He's very like herky jerky,
yeah,
you know, and
he's not a shadowy figure.
No,
like
no,
there are a lot of people that reach the status of Kevin Durant where all of the grunt work is done on their behalf by an agent or a manager or a journalist or whoever, and KD kind of just comes out and says how he feels about things. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and that's another thing that is just very unique about him, especially in the modern media landscape where everything gets analyzed to fucking death.
I know, he's like, and that's kind of similar to Future in a way. There's no self-mythology. There's really just the work, almost.
Yeah.
And in fact, when he tries to go self-mythology, it kind of feels clunky a little bit, right?
Yeah,
like he's
sure.
always at his best, I think, when he's just being KD. And
the one time I feel like the one album, I think we actually did review it on the podcast, which I did like this album, which was the Wizard album. I feel like that was one of the few times where Future did the self-mythologizing.
Yes, he did. And
and he had like the imagery of him in the shadows, and it was it didn't feel forced by any means, but it was very outside of his comfort zone, I felt like.
Yeah, that's the one that has that song Call the Coroner, FNN. Those songs are bangers.
Never Stop is one of my favorite intros to any album.
Those songs were banging. Yeah, but that was like after the mixtape run. So that kind of also feels such as like Durant going to the Warriors kind of feels like the major label run almost, right? And then you have Durant in Oklahoma City. That kind of feels like a mixtape type of run.
Sure.
After the first couple, yeah, it's the parallel. That's really great because like the parallels are so similar in that whenever also Future tried to be this pop star when he was like dating Sierra, right? He tried to do all that. He tried to go through that lane, and that's kind of similar to Durant early in his career, where they try to make him like the anti-LeBron lane, where it's like, oh, like KD plays in Oklahoma City, and you know he would never go to the Miami. He would never take his talent to South Beach, and
it's like, yes, I will. I will at the first chance that I get, actually. And I think in this parallel, we would have to say that Future in his Meathead era would be KD at Texas.
Yes, yeah. But I originally when I hit you up to come on, you know, we text quite a bit, but I talked about Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has asked for a trade officially. But the way he did it to me, yeah, he kind of like we just talked about like going through your agents. The way he did it to me was it was typical Giannis, where it's like, I don't want to be the bad guy here. I'm not saying I want to get traded. I'm just saying that maybe I should be on another team.
Right, exactly. He doesn't want to be perceived as someone who would force a trade, even though everyone in this circumstance would completely understand him pushing the button and basically saying, get me to another team. It's not like I didn't try and exhaust every single resource and avenue here to try to stay here. I mean, Damian Lillard towards like Chris Middleton's body fell apart. Damian Lillard's body fell apart. Like, I tried to make this thing work here. I don't think that anyone would really fault him, but
he has a title. Like,
yeah, he won the title. He won MVPs. Like, no one will. This is not a situation where if he came out and said, I want to trade and this is why, that people would give him shit. But he has this like pristine, almost like Disney like narrative behind him where it's this rags to riches story. And he is seemingly a pretty decent dude and has, you know, obviously overcome a lot of shit in his life to reach where he is. And it felt like it was going to be this fairy tale ending with the Bucks where he gets, you know, a 20-year career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the 10 to 15 best players of all time. And majority of the time, that's not really how this stuff works in the contemporary NBA. And in this situation, I don't think it's Giannis's fault. I do think some of the Bucks stuff is like they drafted like shit, to be clear. Like they really have not hit on a draft. Now, they've resalvaged some players' careers that were seen as like draft busts. Like Ryan Rollins, for example, was like a second round pick, and like he's turned into like a nice player for them. And they, they'll always find a Bobby Portis on the margins or someone that can kind of fill in the gaps. But when you draft as poorly as the Bucks have for 7 or 8 straight years now, and you're basically just immediately lighting your picks on fire, and you're at the same time making these all-in trades to try to keep Giannis happy, eventually that's going to blow up in your face. And the Bucks, I don't blame them for trying. I think every franchise should exhaust every avenue and resource to try to keep a superstar player of his level happy. But at the same time, like, if they had hit on 1 or 2 of those picks, we might be having a conversation about them being one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the Eastern Conference right now, and Giannis being happy enough to kind of see this thing through, at least through the rest of his contract. So, yeah, I mean, he should ask for a trade. Like, let's be real. And honestly, the thing that I'm worried about, just this is a selfish thing of me, just because I basically put a ban on Giannis trade talk for months, and then I lifted it when it looked like he was going to get traded, and then I banned it again. The thing that I'm worried about is that we get through the rest of this season and then the Bucks jump up in the lottery. Like the Sixers did this last year where we get VJ Edgecomb, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, things don't look quite as bad as they did before when you have this exciting rookie who fits your timeline and whatever. Like, if they can't get up to 1 because of the fact that the Hawks own the better of the Pelicans or Bucks picks, but they could realistically get a top 3 or 4 pick in this draft if they're bad for the rest of the season. And then what if they get the 4th pick in the draft or the 3rd pick in the draft, and Giannis is like, playing with DeBansta might not be the worst thing in the world. Like, we could get even longer. So I'm hoping that it happens in the next week so that we don't have to drag this thing out until June, basically.
He is doing the Garnett getting traded from Minnesota thing more than he's doing a selfish superstar I want to trade deal that, Jimmy, for example, maybe did in Miami or at other places he's been at, or even a Melo from in 2011. He's doing more of a Garnett thing, whereas I gave it a go at this Midwest city that hasn't always had a contender, and I gave it a go for 8-9 years. Now, like, let me leave, and let me
12 years
12 years, right? Yeah,
I mean, since he became Giannis, you're right, it is
right.
Like,
but like, but it's like he was also the 15th overall pick, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, he wasn't like a number 1 overall pick, right? Like, Giannis being this great is like somewhat of a, I don't want to say a surprise, but I don't think everyone had this in their bingo card. Like, I don't think everyone was gambling on Giannis being this great.
We went back and we watched the 2013 draft on a stream one night, and if you go back and you watch it, he was kind of the mystery box prospect, where we get these guys every once in a while. I think of Shaedon Sharpe was another one that's a recent guy that would be in that category of, like, he's really athletic, but he didn't play basketball this past year. We don't really know what we're getting with this guy, and I think you get these guys every once in a while where, man, if they can put it all together, it's going to be special. But a lot of the times they end up like the next year with Bruno Caboclo,
right,
who is someone who was seen as like the Brazilian Kevin Durant, and nothing really ever happened with him. So the large majority of the time when you're betting on a player in the mold of Giannis, they aren't even an NBA player in general. Giannis happened to be someone who was, by the way, 6'9" coming out in the draft, grew to be almost basically 7 foot. It continued to get stronger, grew out his frame, and worked on his game, night and day to become the best possible player. And if you go back and you watch that draft during the process, basically the Fran Fraschilla says, like, this guy has the highest upside in the draft, but he also might be terrible. Like, that's just kind of how this is. Like, and Bill Simmons also said, like, during his little portion of it. He called him like he reminds me of like a young Greek Paul George, basically, where he's like this athletic wing who can handle the ball, run in transition, and is like he's smooth, he's got whatever. But once again, we don't know anything about this guy. He's playing against CYO 8th graders. So his career similar to Jokic's, who was drafted the next year, just not a lot of information, not a lot of shit to go off, and they become two of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, it's like that Fresh Prince episode where Will joins varsity and he randomly just starts playing against these whack-ass white boys. He just looks incredible.
Looks like a god. Yeah, exactly. Like, do we know if these guys are anything above an amateur level of player that he's played? There, every once in a while we do get these. I mean, the Thompson twins were a later version of this. They felt like a few years ago.
The Knicks drafted Pac Diate, and he's not good.
Yeah. He was playing in a B league in France.
Right. He's not good.
If you watch the highlights from the B league, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I watched a ton of that league's games when he got drafted.
You didn't watch the French B League?
I don't know if he was on Ratio Farm, but there's a team called Ratio Farm. Not a joke. That's their real name.
Really? That's so funny.
It sounds like a Twitter bit. But I don't know if Datiet was on that team, but there's this one team that is famous for doing this abroad. Okay, so he played for Ratio Farm. Yeah. So that's
a really funny name. That's like naming a record label like a mid-pitch first score or some shit.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
So this is the funny thing about them. They are, and I think that they will probably get blacklisted moving forward in the NBA draft. They are famous for, they did this with Killian Hayes. They did this with Pacome Datiet. They did this past year with a guy named Noah Essengay who got drafted by the Bulls, where they give these guys a ton of opportunity. They build them up. They make them look like stars. They give them the ball all the time. The whistle in that league is apparently really like, it's not a tight whistle. They call fouls for everything. So they have like these high free throw rates, and they have, they look like they have good athletic tools and blah, blah, blah when they're playing against those guys. And then they do that so that they can get the transfer money, so that basically the NBA, whoever drafts them, has to buy them out of their contract. So this team has literally turned it into a business model.
It's a pretty good scam, though.
It's a great scam. I think now Essengay got hurt. Maybe he would have been better. I didn't really see it with him at all. But I just remember I watched 2 of his games and was like, he's kind of invisible on the court half the time. And I just remember being like, I feel like if this doesn't work out, this is going to be the last time they get away with this. And also the Knicks one, I don't know if you remember the Knicks one with Pacome Datiet, but I think they drafted him because he was one of the few guys at the end of the first round that was willing to take less money. It was the first time I've ever seen this.
Yeah.
Where he took less money because they needed to save money because of...
They traded for Dante, didn't they?
So this was the 2024 offseason. So this was they traded for Cat, and they also did the Mikal Bridges trade.
Okay, yes, that's right, the Bridges trade, yeah.
But in order to have financial viability, basically through all these trades, they had to really save on the margins. Like they had to so they literally went below a regular rookie deal to get him in the door.
Yeah.
And look, it didn't work out. Obviously, that's another one where it's like, it would be really nice to have drafted, like, I think Keyshawn George was the next pick, or someone was in that range. There are NBA players in that range, but that draft was so bad. And like, I'm not a big Tyler Kolek fan, but like, you got him in the second round, and he might be like a rotational backup point guard. And like, you use 2 picks or 3 picks on those 2 and McCullough, and sometimes you throw darts and they completely
George was a 16th overall pick.
No, that's Keontae George.
That's Keontae. No, Keyshawn. Okay.
Keyshawn is Keyshawn George was like in that range.
Swiss Canadian. Yes, from Wizards.
Yeah. So he was
24. Yep.
24. Yeah. So he was right in that range. And if I remember,
he was traded. We selected him at first, and then we traded him. Exactly. On draft night, yeah.
And I remember you guys also selected Dylan Jones, who you got back with a 2-way recently that you traded to OKC, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it's funny enough, the guy that I thought the guy that I kept being like, and I was not in on George, I didn't know much about him. the guy that I kept being like, why don't the Knicks or the Bucks, they should just take Terrence Shannon Jr. because my whole thought was, you just want to try to get a rotation player. And like, he felt like a safe rotation player bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, when you're these really good teams, you don't need to take a swing on. The Bucks took AJ Johnson there. And I was like, AJ Johnson, another guy who played like 10 minutes a game in his Australian league that he played for, New Zealand, wherever he played, and was like a raw prospect. And they traded him by the trade deadline. In the like those kind of swings that you take, sometimes they hit, a lot of the times they miss. And if I'm at the end of the first round, I'm a little bit of a coward, and I'm like, let me just get an NBA player here. And
that's what I think too. Yeah. And when in doubt, if you're in the late round, if you're a late pick in the first round, when in doubt, ask the guy who won the tournament and was a really good player on the tournament and was a 4-year player in college. Draft that guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then you figure, and then he's a rotation player, and then you kind of figure that stuff out, right? Draft a Chris Duhon. You know, you draft that, right? Like, that's exactly what you kind of draft. You know, Shabazz Napier, like a guy who's like been in college for a couple years, had a really good college career, and you know that he can be an NBA player, can be a rotation guy. Just draft that. You know,
that was a thought that the Jazz had when they took Walter Clayton.
Yes, yes.
There are, and once again, there are guys that usually go at the end of the first round that can't, like, for example, Emmanuel Quickley was not a 4-year guy, right? Like he was a guy that you know, you guys took at the end of the. But I look at 2020.
But Quickley's a really good example with that, because Quickley's a guy who West had to really, really push for, right? Because everyone was like, he's not that tall, he's not really a point, he's got a weird jump shot, etc. And West was like, no, this guy's a hooper, like an actual hooper. You know what I mean? Like, Calipari's not that good of a coach, as we know, and he's just like, or not that good of an X's and O's coach, as we know. And it's like, okay, you get him in an area where he can be, where his strengths can be,
we got Maxey a few picks before that,
exactly.
So I know. Maxey was more of a lottery guy that probably shouldn't have fell in the first place. But if you look at the end of that first round, like Quickley was a little bit more more proven in college. He was a 2-year guy. Desmond Bane was a 4-year guy.
Was Maxey a freshman?
Maxey was a freshman.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people don't know this that don't follow the draft heavily, but Maxey at one point was supposed to be a top 4 or 5 pick. So Maxey, like, going into college was projected to go like top 6 or 7 in that draft. And then I wouldn't even say he had a weird year at Kentucky. It was just more that, like, he played a role that he was not used to at Kentucky, where like he's coming from high school where he's the man, and then he's having to fit in with this team, and the shots just didn't fall. But like, if you watch the games and you watched his tape, it was basically like, oh, this guy has elite traits where he can kind of get into the paint at will. He's, I mean, one of the fastest players in the NBA immediately, and he also displays this incredible touch around the basket, this touch from floater range, and the 3-point shot needs work, and it didn't really fall in college. But if you go back to his high school years, he's a great free throw shooter, great floater guy, and a good 3-point shooter. So if you zoom out a little bit, you can see the makings of a great, like, 30-point per game scorer, which is what he has become.
Yeah. He's a much better player than Eric Bledsoe is. But it kind of reminds me of when Bledsoe played with Wall at Kentucky, whereas like Bledsoe was actually supposed to be like a lottery pick, like a top 5 lottery pick. But then they sign Wall, and then, you know, he's got a player on the wall, and it's like this is a lot of big thing. But Bledsoe was like a major prospect at the time, like when he signed at Kentucky.
I do think we're going to get less of that in terms of those guys coming out for the draft, just because they can get like Rob Wright Jr. I think his name is Rob Wright III, that plays with the advanced at BYU, was at Baylor with VJ Edgecomb last year, and then got like $2 million to go play at BYU.
I'm all in on AJ, by the way. I think he's awesome.
AJ's great. AJ's great.
I think he's awesome.
In any other draft, I would be like number 1 overall pick, not a question, whatever. In this draft, I think he's going to go 3rd. Like,
I can see it. Yeah.
I think that the thing with the Boozer and Peterson thing is like, these are guys that would probably go first in legitimately any of the last few drafts except for the Wemby draft.
Yeah. The thing about, I just, that, like, it's just private school basketball hoops. I can't stand watching those guys play. I can't stand watching Boozer's son play. Like,
like Duke?
Yeah. Like no. I just think no. I just think the way he plays is ChatGPT hoops. Like
got
the
you, yeah.
style of play that he
Sure.
plays, it's
Right.
so boring to me.
The
It's
big
like so
fundamental,
much.
the
Yeah,
big fundamental.
but like it's missing Duncan's kind of like. Duncan had that weird. Duncan was a little bit weirder than I think people gave him credit for, especially when he was younger. He was a little more athletic than people gave him credit for, and he could do a little bit more stuff with the ball than people gave him credit for when he was younger. And I just think that, like, when I watch Cam Boozer play, I'm like, oh my god, it's like ChatGPT hoop. It's so methodical. It's so like back you down and then a couple of moves like. But when I watch AJ, it reminds me of a player that was in the NBA in the mid 2000s, right? Like who actually is like a hooper, but he's definitely a lot more, because he's raised in this era, he picks his spots a little bit better than those people did.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that if this draft happened 15 years ago, AJ would be number one.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what we know now about like these guys that are basically, like you said, like ChatGPT hoops, where they're like making their game as efficient as possible. And the thing about Boozer, though, is like the thing that I might have undersold, because I thought he was just going to be like Kevin Love, where I was like, oh, he's going to be like a great third guy to have who's like an elite rebounder that can make the right passes. And I've been thinking about the like if the Bucks jump up.
Jesus, true. He's averaging 23.5 points a game. That's not easy to do in college.
Who?
Boozer.
Dude, Boozer's shooting almost 60% from the field, bro.
That's crazy.
Boozer, because the thing about Boozer is that he doesn't have a ton of that in-between game.
Yeah.
But he is someone who can basically get to wherever he wants, like you said, methodically on the court. And like he doesn't have this elite handle and bag. I think in time he can probably refine some of those things and get better. But he's like a super quick, like he doesn't need to hold the ball and run the offense. Like he can make quick passes and quick reads and move on and off the ball and play within the flow of an offense, which is why number one, I wanted to see him go to the Pacers. If he were like just from my basketball standpoint, like I would love to see him and Halliburton.
God, he's the perfect
together.
Pacer. He is the perfect swagless Pacer.
That's what I'm saying. And like that might be the one situation where you actually could put Siakam at you could put him at the 5, because Boozer's like this great rebounder, and he actually is a little bit more of a perimeter defender than like a traditional big defender, I would say. He is someone that I think is going to just be like a boring, normal, extremely good player in the NBA. And then Peterson and Dubansta are like all the flash. Like they're like, I think Peterson probably has the best chance of marrying the two, where he's already like the question with him coming out of high school, from what I understand, is that they were like, I don't really know if he's like going to be like a great 3-point shooter. And like as a guard, you need to be a great, and he immediately came in and was like, nope, I'm now a great 3-point shooter already. Like, and like, will shoot pull-ups, will shoot off pin downs, will like, and is another guy that just like fits in wherever. He's funny because he reminds me of like a refined, taller version of Maxey, where it's just like you throw him on any team and he's going to figure out a way to make it work within a year. And the thing that I love about all three of these guys at the top of this draft is the fact that like they all have very different styles and unique games. And I think Dubance's, he struggled a little bit recently as they've gotten into conference play. And I think that he probably will get a lot of flack from like the calculator, like efficiency people. But my whole pitch on Dubansta and wings in his mold in general are they always suck when they're 18.
Yes.
There's like none of like Durant is like an all-time outlier in that like he came into the NBA or came into college basketball. I guess Cooper Flagg too, but like Flagg was someone who I wouldn't even know if I'd necessarily, because like he's just like
Flagg's such a hybrid, he's such like a hybrid type of player.
He was like a wing and a big a little bit in college, where like
people always made fun of me for I called Flagg like Andre Karolinko light, like in a way. They're different players obviously, but I think he's like a little bit of a hybrid kind of guy. You can put him at the 5, you can put him at the 4. He does a lot of weird different things, I think, than regular wings do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was gonna say he's got a little bit of Kirilenko, a little bit of Tatum in his game, a little bit of
but like RJ, for example, right? RJ stunk when he was at Duke, to be honest, right? Like in hindsight, like he really was not good at all.
No, I remember that tournament, like pulling my hair out watching those games.
oh my God, it's like pass the ball to Zion, pass it to Zion.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's infuriating.
It's infuriating. He wasn't good, and a lot of that stuff actually continues. Actually, a lot better if you think about it than he ever really, really should have been when if you looked at him in
I've
college.
seen people say Debansta's like the Michael Jordan of RJ Barrett's, and I'm like, that's an extremely good player though. Like
Yes,
like even with some,
he reminds me. I think he's gonna be as. I think he could be Jaylen Brown.
I can see a little bit of Jaylen Brown. I see.
Jalen's an elite athletic. Has elite athleticism though. Elite, very very elite. Yeah.
Some of his movements and like a little bit of like he has like herky jerky like Pascal Siakam almost style where he is fluid but also can look rigid and can use that to his advantage a little bit.
Totally agree.
And I think all of them are going to be clear all-star level players. The question is which ones hit the highest ceilings, and I probably would bet on the guy who is like an offensive hub that has plus positional size and is like a supercomputer processor in Boozer becoming like the highest upside guy. And then with Peterson, you never know what the injury is, like what he's going to end up becoming. But if I were, once again, if I were a team that's like middling this year, I would just fucking rip the cord and be like, let's try to get it. Because it's not like an usual year where you have to be so bad. Like you have the new lottery odds and you don't have to jump to 1, you can jump to 3. And like if you jump to 3, like that changes the Bulls outlook. That changes the Bucks outlook if they can jump up to 3 in this draft. And it makes you look so much different moving forward as opposed to like the Hawks got the number 1 pick in the Richiche draft. And like they could have taken Sarr and like that probably would have worked out for them, but like if you were putting prospect Sarr into this draft, he'd probably be like the 5th or 6th pick.
Yeah. How are you feeling about Ricochet right now? Like
I've never been a Richiche. I was like kind of stunned when they took him number 1 over. If you go back and you watch our draft night stream, I was like, you basically just took Harrison Barnes upside with the number 1 pick in the draft. Like this is I at times last year, like Sam was a little bit more optimistic about what he could become in the NBA. And I was like, maybe he could be like, if the shooting really comes around, maybe he could be like Cam Johnson or like best case scenario. Like maybe if he really grows into his body and like maybe in time, if he gets better with his handle, he could become like a Mikal Bridges type. And like, the more I watch him now, I'm just like, he might just be like French Patrick Williams. Like,
yeah,
I
he
don't
looks
really,
lost, man.
Yeah,
he looks like his body language does not look good either, right? Like that's also another thing. Like not to be the body language doctor, but it really does. It's like he goes on the sidelines arguing with coaches. Like it's not great.
He got drafted number 1 overall, and he should have never been. Like he should have been someone that got picked with the 8th pick in the draft or the 10th pick in the draft. Like I remember, I had him 9 on my board, and right when they drafted him, I was like, this is just such a bad situation to put a guy like this in, where all these expectations, he's going to be making all this money, and like he's someone that you put in on your team and you wait for their second contract. Like you get him in the right thing. And like I did admittedly like his fit with Trey, where I was like, Trey will at least be able to spoon feed him like easy shots. And like he doesn't have to run any offense. And if you actually looked at the numbers, his numbers with Trey last year were pretty decent. And then when Trey sat, he was like one of the worst players in the NBA. And that's kind of what I knew things were when all the Trey rumors started popping up. I was like, he loses the most of anyone here. And if that new front office were in charge of the Hawks last year, they probably just take Sarr, even though he didn't want to play there. And like I think I had like Sarr 5th on my board.
Sarr's funny. You didn't want to play in Atlanta, but you wanted to play in DC.
And now you're playing with Trae Young anyway.
Yeah, you're playing with amazing.
Like
Sarr.
Yeah. Maybe he knew that Trae Young was asking out soon and he wanted to play with someone like him eventually. But the thing about Sarr was like I was genuinely concerned about him last year because I was like, he's 7 foot and he can't make a layup. Like but he has made this massive leap in year 2 and he was always going to be a project. So like my thing was like, if you're gonna miss in this draft, miss big. Don't miss at the top of the draft. Like I was like, miss on, fucking Ron Holland or Sarr or those guys that I had in my top 5, even Reed Shepherd, who was like this all-time 3-point shooter in college. I was like, miss on those guys. Don't miss on Richiche, whose upside is like the 5th best player on a decent team. Like he didn't have any outlier skills that could make him into a star. And like that's what you try to look for when you're drafting at the top of the draft is like who is someone that has something that is so different from everyone else that it can like you have elite traits, whether that's your processing, your touch, your feel for the game, whatever it is, and you're productive. And like he didn't really have any of that. He was just taking just a guy with the number 1 overall pick in the draft is like kind of mind bending to me.
It's a little bit of a different situation, but you know what it kind of reminds me of is when Okafor was in the draft with Towns, D'Lo, and Porzingis. And I remember a lot of Sixers people, you included, there's a few other people that were like, no, like Jahlil is not the guy here. And what Okafor kind of was somebody who really didn't have any elite traits. He just was a scorer in college. But he didn't really have any elite traits compared to Towns, compared to Porzingis, right? Like, D'Lo also didn't really have any elite traits, but I didn't think anybody really knew that at the time. And, guards are a little bit of a different thing.
Well, and D'Lo was also, like, the productive guy. Like,
yes.
Where, like, if you looked at his advanced metrics, he was, like, the best college freshman guard in, like, probably since Kyrie or something. Mm-hmm. And you were like, well, you talk yourself into the guy who's at least this productive. Yeah, I mean, the
D'Lo's problem is that he can't really get to the line. That was that's the biggest issue, I think, for him in the NBA. He's just not athletic. You can't really get to the line like that. And if you can't do easy, charity stripe free throws, then like that really affects your game in terms of your offensive efficiency.
Yeah, he's not a paint touch guy.
Yeah.
Like he's like a pick and roll, like, perimeter based guy, and when the shot isn't falling, it's going to look extremely ugly. The other thing that I think that is it's like an era thing with the Okafor. You're coming off the Warriors winning the title, with this like perimeter based, and look, everything course corrects in time. Like over time, it course corrected to that. Like I would say, contemporary hoops kind of went back to how it used to be, just a more advanced version of like big guys and huge wings dominating the game. But now they have to be a little bit more skilled and they have to be a little bit more mobile than they were in the past, because it was obviously a very post-based, post-up style game. But that course correction for the Warriors shit didn't happen for like when Embiid and Jokic started winning MVPs in the early 2020s. So like that's what you were betting on with Okafor. And the real problem with Okafor is that, like, if you compare him to someone like Jokic, or even like, obviously Boozer's not like a big, he'll probably play the 4 in the NBA. But if you compare him to those kind of guys that win with like bully ball in their amateur ranks, that you either have to have some defensive viability, like they're both really good defensive playmakers, and you also have to have like real ability to run offense through you. And like the difference between like the Bagleys and the Okafors and why those guys didn't really work out in the NBA is because they can get buckets with their strength and they can win with size and strength in the post, but they're not going to be able to make the same reads that like a lot of these guys nowadays can make when they're functioning as post hubs.
Yeah, exactly. He just wasn't a distributor at all. Like at all. At all.
And it was like alarming how little he actually passed the ball.
Yeah.
And nowadays, Okafor would just stay in college for 3 years.
Literally. He would stay in college for 3 years, and then he'd have a dominant college career, and then he'd be like, whatever seventh man in the NBA, right? Like, whatever. He'd be maybe even less good John Collins almost, right? Like,
well, the question I want to have for you, because Okafor was, I think people forget that he was like 6'10". Like, he was not like really big. Like he was like 6'10", 6'11". Like my question is like if Okafor was Zach Edey's size, because like I think that Edey, if he can get healthy, and this was our argument the whole draft. I had Edey top 5 on my board, and my argument and all of our arguments, and Matt Powers was the one who had this argument on his podcast, which was Edey is someone who is, the day he steps in the NBA, will be the largest player in the NBA.
Yes.
He's 7'4", 300 pounds with like a 7'8" wingspan, 7'10" wingspan, that you can get him to passable levels on defense because of his rebounding, and eventually he can become like a Jonas Valanciunas level rim protector. And then offensively, he was basically, his argument was, if you look at the stats and you watch the games, He might also struggle with some of the stuff that the Bagleys and the Okafors and those kind of guys struggle with. But the difference is that he can see over the defense because he's 7'4", 7'5". So there's no one you can put on him where he can't see the floor like those guys. And from there, it will just make everything so much easier when he's playing in NBA spacing and they have to make the choice to double team him. He doesn't have to process super quick. He can pass over the top of the defense. And then it's like you have a potentially dominant scorer who can become a pretty decent rim protector who's going to dominate on the glass. And yes, you will have to build your team around probably some of his weaknesses. But at the end of the day, isn't that the swing that you're trying to go for in a draft where it's kind of a shitty draft anyway? And like my whole argument was like, I would be fine if I missed out on the best college player in the last 20 years who's the largest person in the NBA. And if he can ever get healthy, I think he has the highest ceiling of anyone in this class if he can ever get healthy. I just don't know if that will ever, like, the big man foot injury stuff is just like so scary.
It's undeniable. Yeah. It's undefeated. You know, like it kind of reminds me of Yao almost, where he's just like not that mobile. And if you take away a healthy ankle or a healthy foot, like it's just like, what are we really doing? But his offense is a lot better than people I think realize. He's only played 11 games this year, but he averaged a double-double. You know, it's like,
he is literally creating extra possession. He dominates on the offensive glass.
Yeah.
Like, he might end up getting...
He averaged 4 offensive rebounds per game so far this year, and was 3.5 last year.
25 minutes a game or something. Like, he wasn't playing big minutes because of the injury, right?
Yeah, 25.8 minutes a game. So he's not...
You scale that up, like, you're talking about someone who's creating like 4 or 5 extra possessions every game just on the offensive glass. And now some of those might be Drummond boards, where I love Drummond to death. He's one of my favorite players of all time. But half of his offensive rebounds are his own misses.
Right. Yeah. That's the Drummond
That's his thing. He loves doing that. But once again, like, it creates a margin for error. And as we move further back towards this, like, bigs, like, I mean, we're talking about Giannis being on the trade market, and a year or two ago, if you had told me Giannis was on the trade market, I would think that everyone in the NBA would have an offer, right? Like, you would think that, like, every team would be like, fuck it, it's Giannis, let's get him in here and let's make it work, and, you know, whatever. But now he has these calf injuries, and we're talking about these big guys, and I know that Giannis is more of a wing, but he does have these calf injuries, and we're seeing these pop up all around the NBA. And a lot of the times they lead to these Achilles injuries. And with the pace and the space of the modern NBA, combined with the fact that he is someone who's entering his, like, he's 31, he's almost 32. Or no, he's 30. He's 30, almost 31. Embiid's 31, almost 32. And, like, these are things that you have to worry about when you're building your team. And, like, I think we've seen time and time again that, like, youth athleticism and depth has been very important in the playoffs recently, in a way that I don't really think that I could have imagined 3 or 4. I had this guy, Marty Teller, used to come on my podcast, and he would tell me every year, he was like, the Sixers need to start building a deeper, younger, more athletic team and stop trying to chase these stars. And I thought he was crazy, because I was like, it's like, come on, like, you're not going to go get like James Harden or like, you know, and like what happened last year, like the 2 teams that were in the NBA finals were basically built on the strength of that, I felt like. And looks, ultimately, I think star power will get you over the mountaintop. Like that.
The Pacers beat the Knicks because of their bench. That's like why they beat the Knicks. Like that game one, it's obviously a miracle win, but a lot of it happened because the Pacers had a lot more guys they could throw on the court that were ready to shoot, that were ready to really play till the end of the whistle.
And they ran the whole series.
And the Knicks had 7 guys, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing that I think that it just gives you a little bit of protection against injuries. It gives you a little bit of protection against burning out in the playoffs. OKC and the Pacers both last year kind of figured out that, like, having like 8 guys on the court that really have very few traditional weaknesses that, like, teams can target can prove to be a very successful formula. And, like, if you had asked me now, maybe a year ago isn't a good example because the Sixers were in piss and shit a year ago, but 2 years ago when Embiid, before he had this knee injury and when we had all this stuff to trade and cap space and everything looked like, oh, maybe we could line up something, and you told me Giannis was available, I would be like, do everything in your power to go get Giannis. Now I take a little bit of a step back and I go, the recent versions of these trades haven't really worked for the teams that make the trade. And like all of the ones that do work, whether it's like OKC or the Pacers or the Knicks or the Celtics, the Nuggets, the Warriors, they're all about getting like the guys that fit around your current stars instead of trading for the big name and giving up everything to go get that guy.
Yeah, and the Knicks trade, I assume you're talking about the Knicks trade for Cat. That is a really...
I was actually talking about the OG Anunoby.
Okay, yes. Well, yeah, that OG trade is still a great trade. Really,
for sure.
Yeah, it's the best. I think it's the best. It's probably the best trade of... Not probably, it is the best trade of the Leon Rose era.
Well, and the thing that I look at that trade is that's the trade that took you from like cute playoff team to contender.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of things happened that were a little bit out of your control with Hartenstein, where you literally could not give him enough money to keep him in New York because they had him on the... And they had him on a scam deal for 2 years. So it just the way that the CBA worked out kind of fucked them a little bit. And then they panicked a little bit, and they probably overpaid for Mikal Bridges, and they then turned around. And the Mikal Bridges thing was more of a financial thing. The reason why they had to give up that many picks was because he was on a really good contract, and like they could have probably done a sign and trade for Paul George, but they would have had to pay Paul George $45 million a year. And as we're seeing with the Sixers, like Paul George is still good, but he's not $50 million a year good, which is what we paid him. And the Cat one is where I think they might have went a little bit too far with this thing, where that to me might be, I might look at that as the kind of not quite on the level of like paying for like Giannis or Paul George or anything like that. Like you guys gave up like a really good player in Julius Randle. Now you could question the fit and how it would have worked with this iteration of the team.
I think that if that year where before Randle gets hurt and late in that Miami game, you have Brunson, DiVincenzo,
Hartenstein,
OG, and Randall, and then like Mitch, like that to me,
Josh
off the bench, like they were a contender. Like that stretch in January, they were the best in the NBA.
Yeah,
like
and then so it's a combination of Randall getting hurt, not being able to play Hartenstein, and then on top of that, Mitchell Robinson having this injury where you need a center, right? And in hindsight, you probably, knowing what you know about the fact that there's two factors to that trade when you go back and you revisit it, where you go, okay, well, first off, I don't think we really all saw everyone in the NBA being horrified to trade for these huge contracts. And that was the Karl Anthony Towns part of it, where it was like the Wolves were willing to move on because they saw the second apron stuff. They saw the way that like we just saw Trae Young get traded for basically expiring contracts.
Yeah.
The
Knicks get antsy. That's the history of the Knicks management. The Knicks management they get antsy about everything. They get antsy.
They were on such a winning streak up until that trade, where it was just like every move they did, they kind of had a little bit of the Midas touch for so long. And we say this all the time, like we did a slop trial on where we put the GMs on trial. We did one for Masai Ujiri, and I was like, GMs are kind of like players. Like they go on hot streaks. They have these runs where they look like geniuses, and then they make a bad move or two and everything blows up and they become washed. Like it's
exactly what makes Presti's run in Oklahoma City really like just spectacular.
It's such an outlier.
It's such an and even Presti though, like even Presti, I was talking to somebody who's around the Thunder orbit at one point, and even like Presti, like he's like even the trade for even the drafting Giddey was like maybe the one thing he did that I think maybe he would like to have back, right? Like that's the one thing. But other than that,
he gave himself such a massive margin for error.
Yeah,
that like he fucked up on the Giddey pick, and then he flipped him into Caruso, and it worked out. And like this is why it drives me insane. Bill Simmons keeps saying this on his podcast. A few other people have said this on their podcast. Well, what would Presti do if he were running the Pistons? He would wait. He would not make a big trade at this deadline. And I'm like, bro, the Pistons are not in Oklahoma City's shoes from 3 years ago. Like, Oklahoma City knew, hey, we can fuck up on all these picks and it probably doesn't matter because we have this core that we have, and we have so much, like we can miss on 4 picks and then we can trade other picks for proven role players, and we have cap space and whatever. Like the Pistons are in a situation where it's like the East is looking very winnable this year in a way that I didn't really anticipate them being in the conversation. And they also have like matching contracts, and like their picks aren't quite as valuable as we thought they were going to be. Funny enough, bringing it back to the Cat trade, one of the reasons why when they made that trade, I was like, this makes sense to me from the Knicks perspective because they need a big Cat. It can be a second offensive option, and like you can just kind of glue together the defense with the wings and the rebounding. And then on top of that, I didn't think the Pistons were going to be good, and the Pistons make this leap, and that becomes like the 17th pick in the draft instead of being like a pick that never conveys. And obviously Randall, the other piece of that is that the Wolves were like, Randall's not going to have a market. Like no one's going to give Randall $45 million a year. And the Knicks probably had this relationship where it was like, we have to pay him a certain amount of money or else he's going to feel disrespected and he's going to want out and blah, blah, blah. And the Knicks, if they had just waited, might have been able to get Randall on the deal that he's on now. So all of the stuff that has happened with that is the combination of things that led up to it and a little bit of like hindsight bias from us to be like, okay, well, we didn't know that not only would that become the 17th pick of the draft, but also Randall's market would be complete dog shit. And Cat would then be upset because we might put him in a trade for one of the greatest players of all time. like any GM in the fucking NBA would, right? Like, and I get it. Like Karl-Anthony Towns has every right to be upset over this, but at the same time, like you just like you make $50-something million a year, and it is expected that you're going to show up and do your job. Like that's kind of like bare minimum shit.
Look, he is, when Cat is at his best, he is a genuinely like game-changing force on offense. Generally speaking, like a real game-changing force. That game 3 in Indiana that got the Knicks back into the series, that fourth quarter is like one of the craziest fourth quarters I've ever seen.
The Pistons game last year where he just kind of took over down the stretch.
Yeah. That game 4 where he kind of just made every single bucket, right? Like he is the greatest shooting big man of all time, right? Like him and Dirk. That is what it is. But he's also just you can easily knock him off of his setup. You can easily knock him off of his positions where he's like most comfortable in, and you can see
he's relatable.
It.
He's clumsy.
Yeah,
he doesn't have great balance. And it's one of those things where like I because a lot of people have questioned. Now this season, I would say it is more valid to question. Does he really give a shit? Like whatever's happening.
He's a passionate player. I've always thought he was.
In the past, I don't think that was the case. I think it is literally physical disadvantages that he just does not.
He doesn't have great posture either. Have you noticed this?
The balance, the posture.
Yeah, like the way he runs, it's like a little
And on top of that, like the decision making and the processing shit has not always been his greatest skill. And that's something that when you get to the higher levels, this is a guy that's been one of the best players on 2 conference finals teams. But when you get to the higher levels, the best teams and the best coaches in the NBA are going to figure out a way to attack that.
Yeah.
And you guys can still win. This is funny because we talked about it on the podcast. I was like, I just, from an outsider's perspective, this is before the Giannis stuff seemed more real. I was like, I watched that Sixers game where you guys played us, and anytime Cat went to the bench, you guys would go on a run. And anytime that
is this the one that was at the Garden?
Just the other day.
Okay. Yeah, just the other day.
So this was like a week. This was before we got the Giannis news the past few days. So this was probably like less than a week ago at this point. And I'm watching this game, and Joel's cooking him, and anytime he goes to the bench, we can't get a rebound. And you guys, I was like, it was basically a shot-for-shot remake of our series from 2 years ago whenever Cat wasn't on the court. But when Cat was on the court, it would, like, fuck up all the momentum. He would foul someone. It was, like, it was playing into the Sixers' hands, right? And funny enough, one of the reasons why I felt better about this matchup with the Knicks, as opposed to, I've always thought you guys were kind of a thorn in our side before, where it was just like, we're just going to get destroyed in the glass, and we don't have the ability to really keep up with them in terms of talent. The difference this year in this matchup has felt like the fact that whenever the Knicks play a team that has like 3 or 4 creators, it's just hard for them to keep up defensively in a way that they've been able to in the past. And I think Cat being on the court along with Brunson is a big part of that. And the thing is that Brunson's your best player, and your ultimate goal should be maximizing who you put around Jalen Brunson. And Cat, while the offense can be super dynamic at times, and the non-Brunson minutes can look good when Cat has a traditional creator point guard style guy, like last year was Campaign. This year it's Tyler Kolek, I think. It can look good. You guys can win those minutes, and it's helpful over the course of a regular season that when you get to those conference finals and those finals, those are the times that I would worry about the fit. And that's obviously a good problem to have. But at the same time, you get the wrong matchup early in the playoffs. Mitch gets an ankle injury or something, which he tends to do. Then everything's on that. Like, my thing was like, I was like, this was before I thought the Giannis thing was realistic. Was like, I might just get out ahead of it and be like, go like call like a team and be like, give me 2 role players for Cat.
Yeah,
and like, because I think this team is good enough. Just with the like, you're gonna need Mitch healthy either way. But like,
if Mitch isn't healthy, there's no chance they go anywhere. Seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, you would have Brunson, Bridges, OG, Hart, Mitch as your starting 5, or maybe still continue to bring Hart off the bench and get someone else that can fill in there. Now, there are a few guys around the NBA, I think, if you did make Cat available, that would make some sense kind of plugging into this team. But now that the Giannis thing is on the table, the question becomes like, where do the Knicks stack up against the rest of the league? Because you don't have picks and you don't have young players except for Deuce, who I would try as hard as possible to keep in a trade only because he's on a scam contract.
Yeah,
you need as many of those as possible.
I think Deuce is like a little bit over, not a little bit. I do think that Deuce is an overrated player. I think there's 2. I think we texted before that I think there's 2 overrated players on the Knicks that particularly I think Knicks fans tend to overrate, which is Deuce and Hart. Like, Hart is a solid player when deployed in the right way. But last year
kills the Sixers because of the rebounding.
Yes, exactly. The rebounding, as you talked about, that's all Hart. Mitch got hurt, I think, game 3 that series. The rest of the series, that rebounding, it's all Hart. It really is. It's all Hart, but he just
Hartenstein a little bit too. Mostly Hart.
He really just like cannot score like in a half court setting. He just cannot do it. And so when you're playing like that Pacers series last year, it really killed us because he couldn't, we needed one more guy to really kind of match the amount of scores that the Pacers had, and he just really could not. He was not up to the task. And I think Deuce isn't quite as good as Knicks fans think. He's not quite the distributor Knicks fans wish that he was. Yeah, that's why we need a backup point guard like Kolek. Like he just doesn't quite have that.
The thing, obviously you would not draw the line at Deuce McBride in any Giannis trade, but if you are trading for Giannis, I keep seeing like these teams that tend to survive the big star trades are the ones that's like, oh, we have this guy that no one really knows about that actually can scale up a little bit.
Yeah.
And like a few years ago, Deuce was kind of that guy when you guys made the RJ and quickly for OG trade where it was like, oh, Deuce, because Deuce wasn't really even in the rotation until that December before, and then the trade happens, and then in January he's thrust into the rotation, and it's like, oh, he's a guy, so you survived the loss of 2 rotation players for 1 rotation player. And that's the thing, is that if any Giannis trade you make, it's going to be a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 realistically, unless you want to bring Kyle Kuzma along with. And if you do
we already have Jordan Clarkson.
Former Laker who's a complete bozo.
Yeah, we already have it,
because he was on the Lakers. But like, if you do make a move for a guy like Giannis, there has to be, now the Knicks probably are in a unique situation because they do kind of have, I would say you guys have like 6 or 7 quality starters on most teams. I don't know if I would say starters on contenders, but starters on like your average NBA team, and you might be able to survive that. But I do question, like, what does the package look like? The idea that people have floated out there recently is like, can you move Mikal Bridges to a team and get picks to send to, because like I think he would have value around the NBA now on his new contract. I don't think he would have as much value as he did on his last contract. And then the other question is,
he played well last night. He was talking about how
hooping.
Yeah.
It was so funny because I literally joked earlier today, and I said if you just read Knicks fans' tweets, you would think he's Skinny Tobias, and then I kept calling him Skinny Tobias, and then I turned on that game, and I was like, oh, he must have heard my slander because
he's a lot better defensively than Tobias ever could be. He's just. We talk about the Tatums, the Paul Georges, of LeBrons. Bridges is kind of in that mode too, where he feels like the Tobias of a better player, right? Like whatever the better player is that we want Bridges to be, he feels like the Tobias of that almost, right? Like it's sometimes tough to watch him fade in and out of games. Like his
he gets
confidence.
These stretches though, like he had last night. He had it in a big game for you guys last year. I want to say it was the Christmas Day game, not this season, but the year before, where it was just like, oh, he can take over in
yes, against San Antonio. He was amazing on Christmas Day against San Antonio. Yeah.
And he has that, and that's what you like to have out of a playoff performer, where it's like when they figured out our whole offense, like all of our bread and butter.
He's not really even having a bad season necessarily. He's shooting 40% from three.
He's just been very up and down.
He's
like,
yeah.
He started like really hot, then he hit a wall. I do wonder with him because once again, he's a release valve player where like if he's your third or fourth best offensive player, it's nice to be able to have that luxury to fall back on him. And then he's not always the most consistent defender, but he locks in the clutch in a way that he showed in the Celtics series last year, where he can prove to be like super valuable. The thing with
the games, right? The amount of games he plays, that's his value too. Yeah,
that's valuable. But I've been wondering if that is starting to take its toll, because one of the things that he used to be like elite and known for, and I've seen this with a few. It feels like defenders with this new pace and space in the NBA and the amount of miles that they have to put on themselves just from running around all the time, that they fall off much faster than they used to. Where it's like Marcus Smart, for example, went from being like defensive player of the year and 2 years later was basically being salary dumped.
Yeah.
And even though he probably should have never got defensive player of the year in the first place,
obviously.
but he was still a very, very good defender.
Little Boston media mafia working there.
They went overtime, and that one of their greatest achievements, in my opinion. You got to give them props where you give them props, just like the CIA when they pull some shit off. But the long and short of this is that it feels like, and this is my worry about when I'm trading. Like Herb Jones is a guy that I would love to have on the Sixers. Like I think he's like he could be our version of Alex Caruso for we don't have as much talent as the Thunder, but like that mold of player. And I just see these guys that like get into like their late 20s, early 30s, and they put so much just every night having to guard Anthony Edwards and Donovan Mitchell, and like it would take a toll on anyone. Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, like, and it feels like Bridges specifically, one of the things that he was really good at early in his career was navigating screens. And it feels like because he's not the strongest guy, he was very like slithery, like he could get around a screen much easier. He could kind of bend, and he understood the angles of how to get around a screen. And Caruso and him were like the two best at this forever. And now it just feels like he kind of dies on screens when you watch him play in a way that he never really did. So I do wonder with like, if you are the Knicks and you're making a trade, like, do you get out ahead of some of this stuff? You know what I mean? Where it's like, people might kill us in the moment for like trading a Villanova guy or whatever. But do you get ahead out of like Carlin?
All the most evil New Yorkers care about that.
I'm sure. Well, I do think that I think an underrated part of building a team is keeping your best player happy, and it's very obvious that I remember hearing things about like Dante didn't really even fuck with them, which is very funny.
No. Dante and Hart do not get along. Yeah, right? Like they've always had a little bit of a weird kind of thing. Because Hart's very like, he was at the Shane Gills comedy show the other night at MSG. He posted like funny. He was like at the Gills concert. He's great.
A Reddit guy.
He's a little bit of a Reddit.
Little Barstool,
a little Barstool, little Reddit, little like with the one black guy and the white frat kind of style.
The Drewski skit?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. They have like a little bit of a Catholic schoolboy energy, a lot of those guys. And I think Dante's a little bit more kind of like
Michael Jordan of Delaware.
Michael Jordan of Delaware, yeah, public school Delaware, Adidas tracksuit, Sopranos kind of vibe. So it's like a little bit of a different type of energy, I think, than what Hart and Brunson have.
DMV versus Wilmington, Delaware. It's a very different vibe.
Yeah. Brunson and Hart are kinship kind of guys. Like those guys are foxhole kind of guys, and I think Bridges and Dante, they're a little bit outside of that, but especially Dante, I think.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I remember hearing a story that when the trade broke, that they traded Dante and the Cat for Randall trade, that they were all together and Dante wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of just tells you that like they're like, those two are, like you said, they're the roommates. Mm-hmm. And then I think it became a bigger thing because of the Villanova connection and the reuniting and stuff. But the thing that I'm trying to get at here is like, obviously if you traded for Giannis, no one would give a fuck. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's Giannis, goes to Madison Square Garden. How do you feel about that right now? Because like, I'm kind of like, yeah, if it's the golden ticket out of this Karl-Anthony Towns possibly miserable derailing, it reminds me a little bit of the Eagles with AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Where it's like, AJ's obviously, this amazing talent, and
I think I texted you, AJ Brown, you are a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, I've gotten that from Patriots fans, Bills fans, like everyone, and I'm like, I love AJ. If you want to go through the AJ experience, and I'm sure the Bills and Patriots would be a little bit more able to handle that because they have like high flying offenses.
He didn't play well enough to warrant a lot of the stuff.
That was my whole thing this year. When he was doing it last year, I was like, give AJ the ball, get out of the fucking way. Like, he's that guy. And when he did it 2 years ago, I was like, he has every right to be mad. And then this year, I'm like, you're not even really playing that well. Like, I kind of just want you to get through the season and we can readdress it later. Like, you're not going to get traded because of the financial implications, all that stuff. But what I'm trying to get at here is like, the talent was so overwhelming. And they won the championship and they were, they made it to another. And that's such a rare thing that if we lose him now, I'm like, it's not like the T.O. thing. Like when we lost T.O., I'm like, we just fumbled. I know he's a pain in the ass, but we just fumbled one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And we were so close to getting over the top with him. Can we just suck it up for 2 more years and try to win a fucking championship and then figure it out? AJ, we've already done it. You guys are kind of in a similar, obviously very different personalities.
Right. But
similar kind of parallel here. And my thing is like, I don't think the NFL is such a small sample of games and you can go on a run and it's like he might have hated the coach, he might have hated the quarterback at the time or the offensive coordinator, I don't know. And it didn't matter because they got hot at the right time and they won the championship. In the NBA, you have to spend every single day with these guys for months if you make the playoffs. And, like, you have to play 7 games, and you have to win 4 of them. Like, I don't think there's a way, like, the way that the Eagles collapsed this year, that's what it feels like would be coming. Not, you guys would win a playoff series. Like, you wouldn't lose in the first round because the East is just too weak. Yeah. And you might even have a chance to win the East, and it might not implode until the finals or whatever. But I don't think you can hate players on your team or not have the right connectedness and vibe and win a championship. Like, I just don't think that really exists.
No, it doesn't really exist. I'm trying to remember if there was a team in the past decade where the Warriors, right? That meant the Warriors with
the last KD.
Yeah, the last KD year with
they would have won if he didn't get hurt. Too.
Right. Yes, yeah. The last KD year with Draymond and KD, it's like, well, Clay gets hurt in that game 5, though, right? Do they still, even with KD, do they still win?
Game 6. It was
game 6, right? Clay gets hurt in that game 6.
And it was really, they probably would have, I think they would have eventually run out of gas without KD. Like, that's, my whole feel on that is, like, the Warriors had enough experience and talent, even without KD, to, like, push the Raptors. But the Raptors would have had game 7 at home. And, like, I just think without Kevin Durant, like, the Durant thing was such an
sucked the life out of the whole team too, and the whole energy of the series, and it was
like,
tough.
and it was also like, it's such a cheat code to have 2 of the 3 best players in the NBA that have this synergistic relationship on offense in a way that really not many superstars have, that KD and Steph were able to kind of tap into for a few years.
They were good together. Yeah, they were good together.
And the thing about them is like they just fit, like you can fit them, especially Steph, but you could fit, like that's why if this Giannis trade does go down, I personally, just from a basketball standpoint, would love to see him on the Warriors.
Yes.
Even though I don't think they would win the championship.
What would the deal be for Giannis, right?
It would just be picks, basically. So, like, the thing is that if they don't have because we talked about like the Knicks can acquire picks and maybe prospects via trades for their veterans that they have.
Kuminga wouldn't be involved in it.
He would, but no, I don't think Kuminga has value. Like most of the
he's like not even NBA, that good, really. Yeah,
he's fine. Like he's like a solid. He's kind of like a what if RJ Barrett had a bad attitude a few years ago? Like you know what I mean? And like
RJ's saving grace is his saving grace is that he's a hard worker and has great attitude.
That's, and everyone loves him. Yeah. So like if he was a dickhead, no one would want to put up with it. And like I do get a little bit coming from his perspective of like you drafted me with the 7th pick of the draft. I come to this team that has crazy high expectations. Every time I get an opportunity, I try my best to kind of maximize it. And for whatever reason, the coach and the new front office don't really value me.
Yeah, Kerr has jerked. I have personally seen Kerr jerk him around a little bit during games. I get it. Like when I interviewed E40 thought so as well. Actually, when I interviewed E40 complained about Kerr jerking Kuminga around.
Really?
Yeah. It was,
Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, it was very funny. He's like, you keep jerking him around, he can't really get into the groove of the game.
That isn't wrong.
Yeah.
I have empathy for Kuminga, and Khalil Ware is another one with the Heat. But my whole thing is like, I hate to be a boomer about this, but like, when have Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra been wrong about a player?
Yeah.
They're usually right.
They're usually right about a lot of different stuff.
They get the benefit of the doubt because they know what it takes to fucking win in the NBA, and those guys are talented.
There is no way. If Draymond was on a different team, there is no way he would still be on that team if not for Kerr being the coach and understanding, like, okay, this guy's the greatest defensive player of all time. Like, his defensive mind is the greatest defensive mind we've seen since, I don't know, like, Bill Russell or whatever. Like, so we need him on this squad, but if he played for any other team, they would have been like, yo, we got to trade Draymond. This guy's crazy.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, and that has been my argument, is that like they usually come on, like, how's Jordan Poole done since he left the Warriors? Name a player. There are a few guys that have like a cup of coffee with the Warriors that go on to have like decent careers.
Where's Caleb Martin doing? What's Caleb Martin doing, right? When he had that Heat run. What's Gabe Vincent doing? What are
Josh
these guys?
Richardson.
Right. Like, Richardson's a great one. What are these guys doing? Like,
and you occasionally have guys who can go on and have
Powell's had they traded for Powell. Powell's done really well there,
Duncan Robinson has been fine for the Pistons, and Max Strus has been fine for the Cavs. But my point is that these coaches generally in their systems kind of maximize players, and when they leave, they usually can never find the same kind of success. Dante's been pretty good since he left the Warriors, but the Warriors probably would have kept him if they didn't have him on a 1-year deal. Ty Jerome's another one who, like, they kind of discovered him, like, had a cup of coffee, got injured, went to another team, and has had kind of a bounce back. But, like, it's rare that you have these players who leave and are better when they go to a new team. And I think there is a world where, like, a rebuilding team kind of uses Kuminga. And it's funny because him and RJ actually do have a lot of similar parallels in that, like, they're wings that they're athletic, but they're limited in some capacities where, like, the skill doesn't quite line up with the athleticism, and they need the ball to kind of flourish and be in there for them. What's best for them is not necessarily what's best for, like, a team that wins a ton of games, because, like, they're really good at drawing free throws and, like, they're really good at getting into the paint. But, like, if you don't have counters and you don't have, like, high level playmaking ability or great touch, like, what are those individual skills really translating to on a winning team? And RJ's kind of found it a little bit with the Raptors, where this coach that kind of has a system where everyone does a little bit of everything, and he wants guys who are downhill threats and whatever.
Yeah,
But
RJ's at his best when he can play downhill and have the ball in his
right,
hands.
exactly. And like maybe Kuminga can find that eventually, but like when we're talking about in a trade for Giannis, he is basically just salary filler in my mind. And I know that's might be a little bit fucked up to say, but like that's kind of how teams view it.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the teams just view it as like this guy is basically what it takes to get the trade done. And the good thing about him, like for him and for whatever team trades for him, is that his contract is up after this year. So if he goes to a team and he balls out, then they can like give him a longer term deal. And if he goes to a team for the rest of this season and it doesn't work out, then they can just kind of be on their own way and he can go try to sign somewhere in free agency and make it work for himself.
It kind of reminds me of Grimes a little bit, where Grimes got traded from the Knicks and he was complaining about his role constantly. You know, Tibbs was jerking him around, put him in the corner, etc. He goes to a different team. Okay, Grimes, let's see what you can do. He actually shows that he can score a little bit, right? Grimes can score a little bit. So I think that's like kind of what Kuminga should be looking for if something like that ends up going through.
Grimes should be so much better than he is.
Yeah.
But he's a hooper's hooper, which is funny because I don't really think people realize that about him. Is that because he went to Houston and he played for Kelvin Sampson and he taught him like the fundamentals and like how to guard and like all that shit, and he's a crazy athlete, so he's been able to kind of figure that out. The thing about Grimes is that like he is someone that needs to touch the feel the leather and like see the ball go in, and then that will determine how he plays. And he can get on these stretches where he looked like the end of last year, which even if you want to say that was fake because we had nothing to play for, but it extended into this year a little bit. For the first like month of the season, I was like, oh, we might have just got like the ideal contemporary 6-man in the NBA, where it's like he can play a little bit of defense, he can shoot, he can work on and off the ball. He's not a horrible playmaker, not obviously great for like a guard, really good finisher. And then the stars come back and he cannot scale into a role where he doesn't touch the ball and he doesn't feel the rhythm of the game. Like he's not a guy you can put in the corner. Like he's just not, that's not his game. And that's something that I think
some guys need to feel some guys need to feel the love. Yeah.
Right. The healing touches of the leather, I believe.
Yeah.
But the long and short of this is like if there is a Giannis trade to the Warriors, it would basically be all for those picks because they have the contracts to make it work, like especially with Jimmy out. That sucks, but like he's probably done with the Warriors. And then you could do Podziemski just because they need young players, and he's from Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. Podziemski and Kuminga or whoever they want. And then you just throw in every pick and every swap you can trade. And if you're the Bucks, you're just betting 4 years from now, the Warriors are going to be the worst team in the NBA. Once Giannis is like 35 and once Steph is retired, and we can have a few years from now, we can have these crazy picks where we're getting lottery picks for like 4 straight years or whatever it is. And we can make the bet that this is a long-term thing that we can kind of turn into. And it's really the best of both worlds because you get a running mate for Steph to go down the stretch of the end of his career. I'm sure they'll sell a ton of tickets to Silicon Valley perverts who will pay thousands of dollars to come see Giannis. And then you'll be horrible in 4 years, but you did everything in your power to make Steph happy and try to win a last championship and all of that. I actually think it would be a disaster for the Warriors. Just because I think with the Giannis calf stuff and Steph's age and the lack of good players they would have after that, I don't think they have a chance to win the championship this year. And I do think it would turn out very bad, but from a pure basketball fan standpoint, I would love to see those two play together.
Yeah. Oh, I think they'd be great, right? Like they're the duo I think that would be the most successful. I saw on Knicks Reddit a lot of Knicks fans were wondering about the fit with Brunson and Giannis. I think it's a fine fit. Like
it will work.
Yeah,
I mean, the Dame thing. The reason why Dame and Giannis didn't work together is because they didn't have good players other than them.
Exactly.
The Knicks wouldn't have that problem. Now you would have to trade some of.
Also, I think Brunson's better than Dame, right? Like
this version of Brunson is definitely better than because Dame was older when he was on the Bucks, and I do wonder the fit would.
And Brunson's not going through a divorce either. But that was like that
was another thing. He was like, I wanted to go to Miami because I wanted to be single and get laid, and you traded me to fucking Milwaukee. Like, come on.
You mean there's no dive bar girls that Dave can holler at a little bit, you know?
Well, they've talked about this whole Giannis thing. Like, he keeps leaking, like, I'd love to play with this player. I'd love to play with Ant, and Maxey and him work out with Drew Hanlon in the offseason.
Yeah.
And I'm like, as a Sixers fan, I'm like, I'm good. Like, we've done this song and dance so many times where it's like, oh, let's just go get Jimmy Butler, Al Horford, or Paul George, or
the Jimmy
James
thing could have
Harden.
worked though. The Jimmy,
of course it could have. I understand it could have worked. All of this stuff.
Simmons just wasn't right in that playoff series against Toronto. You know what I mean? Like
No. You're misremembering. That series, he was actually not bad. It's funny if you go back and you read.
Defensively, he was really good.
No. I'm telling you, we did a stream 2 years ago. We went back and we watched Game 7 of that series. Ben Simmons made 5 of 6 free throws, including big ones down the stretch of that game. It was the best Ben playoff game ever for the Sixers in Game 7.
Against the Raptors.
It was actually one of the only players who showed up, which is brain-breaking because every other big moment for us, he just was a ghost.
Yeah.
And in that game,
Game 6, he played well, too.
He had moments where the frustrating part of the Ben Simmons experience was he would look like a god from time to time. And then and I do think some of it was he didn't really give a shit, and some of it was he did have physical limitations on, like, he didn't have the greatest handle, and like his touch just wasn't good enough to ever become a shooter, and like all that stuff. But like, I don't think that he maximized who he could have been as a player by any means. He kind of just coasted to all-stars. And like,
then now, obviously, he has a debilitating back injury.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
He's just a different kind of player. But
talk about the handle. That's interesting. I never heard that before. The handle.
So Ben's handle in the open court was absolutely elite.
Great.
When he got like a runway to get downhill and there were no defenders in front of him. The thing that Ben struggled with, because the handle for someone his size was stupid, obviously. The thing that Ben really struggled with, though, was that if he had to, and Mike Levin from Ricky Sanchez would always talk about this. He's like, Ben would prematurely pick up his dribble a ton because he didn't trust his handle in traffic. And the best drivers in the NBA historically, Giannis, LeBron, these guys that are like just built on being pure downhill threats, eventually they continue to get stronger, and they continue to work on their handle until they feel like they can drive in small windows and they can get at least a paint touch to kind of. Ben, because of the fact that he never got better at shooting, it was kind of a 50-50 relationship, where it was this two-way road where because he didn't get better at shooting, no one had to respect the shot from the outside. And then because he never really worked on his handle to get better than what it already was, which was naturally pretty good, that he couldn't attack the space, is what they say. Like, if they give you space in front of you, attack that space like Giannis does, Scotty Barnes does it, LeBron, Amen Thompson probably will learn this over time, where you attack that space and then you at least cause the defense to rotate. They could just put one guy on him or put two guys, like Spo and Brad Stevens basically figured this out with him, where like you just put two guys at the
they were almost doing like a boxing two almost. Literally, essentially what they were kind of doing with Simmons.
So they would just be like, we're gonna basically clog the paint so that you feel like you can never get to the basket, and if you do, you're also going to be afraid of potentially getting to the free throw line by the last year, that we don't have to worry about this at all, basically. And it kind of upended the trajectory of his career. And like the reason why Giannis is Giannis is because he not only had this freakish growth spurt when he got to the NBA and still kept his fluidity and his handle and all the things that made him great in the first place, was also that he is like a genuinely psycho, like, I'm gonna be the best version of myself that I can be, that we see from a lot of the greatest players of all time that might have some like little deficiencies in their game. And Ben was just, that was never really Ben. Ben was just naturally really talented, a basketball genius in some ways. And it's funny, if you go back and you look at that Raptor series, the moments that they could have won in that Raptor series, they had, it's funny because Jimmy and Embiid were arguably our best players throughout that series. And they both didn't kind of show up in Game 7. And a part of it was the Raptors defense was like historically good. Like they were swarming. Like we had, I don't know if you remember this. We had 2 shot clock violations in the last 5 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
Like we could not get a shot off. And
but the big men in that for the Raptors, Ibaka, Gasol, they were great in the paint. Just terrific. They were
So they had all these perimeter defenders. Siakam. They didn't even play OG, by the way. OG didn't play in that series. He didn't play for that whole run. So they had Siakam, Kawhi, Danny Green as like a nail defender. Like it was just so hard to get anything on that team. And the reason why, first off, the reason why we even hung in that series in the first place is that Brett Brown made this adjustment after game 1 where Siakam basically just cooked Tobias Harris the whole game. And he put Embiid on Siakam and put Tobias Harris on Marc Gasol and basically said, look, if Marc Gasol wants to beat us as a scorer, we're going to put Embiid in the paint and we're going to force Pascal Siakam to shoot. And Siakam basically didn't score for the rest. Siakam and Fred VanVleet were actually pretty terrible in that series. And then they made up for it in the later rounds because they were still fairly young and kind of finding themselves as players. The reason we lost that series is because there were 2 moments where Kawhi went into God mode.
Yeah.
And the main ones were the end of, so I don't know if you remember this, but the end of game 4 in that series, the Sixers were up 5 with 2 minutes left.
Yes.
And Lowry, we were about to go up 3-1. We're at home. Lowry said, I was looking around like, holy shit, we're really about to go down 3-1 and lose another fucking series. And then Kawhi literally didn't pass the ball for the rest of the game, made every shot down the stretch. We couldn't score. They tie the series at 2-2. And then in game 7, he only went like, Simmons played like such good defense on Kawhi in that game that he only went like 17 for 41 or something.
Yeah.
But he hit every shot that mattered when no one could score. And they ultimately ended up winning that series, and then they took down Giannis and the Bucks in the next round. Similar back against the wall situation. They had to go to overtime of game 3 to avoid going down 3-0.
Yeah.
George Hill misses free throws. That's one of the craziest runs of all time because there was 3 different times they should have been dead in the water, and they ended up coming back and winning the championship that year. And it made so many guys' careers based on the.
Yeah. I mean, Kawhi's
legacy stand forever. Nick Nurse has a job in the NBA forever. Obviously, a lot of the guys, like Lowry, isn't a loser. He's an all-time
he's a Hall of Famer because of he's probably gonna make it to the Hall of Fame. Like,
yep, yeah, like it rewrote so many guys, like how people felt about them, and then kind of they haven't really lost the shine ever since.
Yeah, and I think it cemented Kawhi's career as well because he wins a title in San Antonio. That Spurs team is one of the greatest teams of my lifetime. Like they were so deep. They played together so well. They had such great players all over. You know, Kawhi's maybe like the second or first best player, but it's not as like he's scoring that many points at that time. Then he leaves San Antonio under like weird circumstances. The thing with the uncle, you know, you can't find him in a hotel, etc. So he needs this year to really be like, okay, no, I'm actually that guy, right? Like I'm the closest thing to Jordan that there's actually been.
I was going to say, I went, if you go back and you listen to podcasts from that era, it's the only time I can remember people being, they never even did this with Steph, where they were like, okay, we have a new best player after that run, that people were like, they were willing to put him above LeBron. And then of course, LeBron comes back the next year, wins the championship.
Right. Bubble, but yeah.
I don't care about the bubble. That, to me, I think that's the most, I think it's, my whole thing is I actually think the fake championship was the next year.
Yes, you are right. You're right. But I do think I do wonder if LeBron wins, if there's no COVID and he's forced to play the Clippers. He's forced to play a Clipper team that isn't unhappy that they're there, right? Like he's forced to play a Clipper team that like actually wants to be there and, you know, doesn't have players that are
It's possible, but I think people underrate that Lakers team. They were the number 1 seed by a fucking mile. They had the second best record in the NBA, funny enough, behind only the Bucks.
They were struggling against the Clippers team though a little bit.
They did lose, but regular season stuff, it's just not always.
It's not the same, yeah.
It doesn't like the Suns.
I like the LeBron versus Kawhi matchup for Kawhi a lot.
It would have been great to watch for sure. But that Lakers team from start to finish, outside of they actually, funny enough, their worst stretch that whole season was when they first got in the bubble.
Yeah.
And they actually went 500 in the bubble before the playoffs. And it was literally because LeBron didn't give a fuck. He was like, get us to the playoffs. The difference was that the question to me is, does AD stay healthy for that long if they don't have the break?
Right.
That's the real question to me.
Yeah.
Because if AD was able to stay healthy for the rest of that season and then into the playoffs,
Davis was amazing that whole entire season. He was incredible.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was incredible.
And he
very underrated big man season. He was really, really great.
It wasn't really until recently that he missed a ton of games. Like, it was really that next season was when it started with Anthony Davis and the injuries, but he was so good for them in the bubble, and maybe he isn't quite as healthy if they have to play for 4 straight months or 5 straight months like he would have if he had played in the regular season. But maybe the break really benefited him and LeBron. That's the argument I can hear that is like, okay, that's fair. But also, like, the next year, like, look at how many injuries we had the following season.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the teams that were the Final Four that year in 2021. It was the Bucks, who, credit to Giannis and that core for winning a championship, and it doesn't matter. You can't take anything away from them. But at the same time, like, they had no playoff success outside of that.
Yeah, they
like,
literally lost to an 8 seed.
The Suns have won 1 playoff series since then.
Yeah.
The Bucks have won 1 playoff series since then. The Hawks have won 0 playoff series since then. And the Clippers basically fell apart and then had to be rebuilt after that.
Yeah.
So, like, look at the
Giannis
Final
lost to an
Four.
8 seed after he won the NBA Finals, right? Like, he
hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the other part of this is, like, how much are you investing in Giannis when we're talking about this trade stuff? Where he's entering his 30s, he's someone who's heavily reliant on athleticism, and yes, when he is healthy, he's still one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA, and that's undeniable. But he has not been healthy in the playoffs really since 2022 was the last time when they took the Celtics to 7 in their championship defending year without Chris Middleton, and he played some of the best games of his career in that series. He also had some real... There's a conversation to be had about Giannis in the playoffs that I think when we end his career, I think people are going to look back and be like, oh, he had some amazing moments, but he also had some real duds.
The free throws really, really.
For sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is his chance to kind of do what Steph did when KD left.
Yeah.
And, like, prove that, like, no, I'm still that guy. And, like, actually, I just needed to get to the right team and, like, have the right circumstances for me to be the number one, which I do think he is capable of. Like, I think if you told me, and I also think it's the bar for that might be, I wouldn't say it's lower than it has been historically to be the best player on a championship team, right? Where it's like, I think you can have like Tyrese Halliburton was always almost the best player in a championship team last year. I think that the Knicks with Jalen Brunson could be a team that wins. And, like, while those players are great players, if you stack them up against the best players on championship teams, we're usually talking about a handful of, like, first ballot Hall of Famers who are runaway all-time top 20, 25 guys of all time. And even an aging Giannis, I think, has the ability to do that as, like, the 4th best player, 3rd best player in the NBA with these 2 all-time guys with Jokic and Shea as the 1 and 2. But what team can give up enough and still have enough after they trade for him? I think the Knicks are probably on that list. I think the Warriors are probably, if you want to do long, I don't think they would win, but it's a little bit of a long shot, but they're probably on that list. And then I think ultimately it probably has to wait until the offseason to discuss, like, teams like the Rockets and the Hawks and the Heat, maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't think the Heat would necessarily have enough if they traded for him. But I don't think it's a long list of teams that can give up what it takes to get him and then also still have enough once the trade is over.
Who do we think? All right, well, first, so I wonder if he can have a late stage health rejuvenation that LeBron kind of had. So LeBron's second Cavalier stint, that first year, he misses, I want to say, 12 games, I think he missed. He goes on that vacation with like D Wade, and it's so funny. It's like classic LeBron. Like, I'm mad, so I'm going on this vacation with D Wade. He plays 69 games that year, so he missed 13 games. Kind of a lot for LeBron at that time. So, can Giannis have the health rejuvenation LeBron had? Because he plays 76 in that 3-1 year where he comes back. He plays 74 in the next year where they lose to the first year Durant's on the Warriors. And then he plays all 82 the year after they trade Kyrie in the offseason. And that year is like that year's one of his biggest masterpieces, I think.
Masterpieces.
Yeah, that year's insane.
That playoff run is,
oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he played all 82 games.
Then he went to 7 twice. In the playoffs.
Yes, that's right. Pacers and Celtics.
Yep.
Can Giannis have a rejuvenation in health? Can he have a second health stint that LeBron kind of had after his, first 10-year peak he does with Cavaliers at Miami? Can Giannis
How much of that health stuff was LeBron just not giving a shit? Because I feel like he had proven everything he could have proved in the regular season, and he just took it super, like, he was just really safe about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Giannis is like this injury prone, like unfixable. He still plays. Like, this is the first year where he's missed a lot of regular season games, to be clear. And he won't even qualify for All NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, to me, it's more like this recurring calf issue that really started 2 years ago that keeps continuing to pop up over and over for him is something that I would definitely be worried about if I'm giving up everything that I have to go get him. And then I do think there's a world where, like, a team just, because the Bucks have needed him to play 70 games a year, just to be 60 games a year, whatever it is, just to be, there might be, like, the Knicks would be one of the few teams where if he was traded there, I think you could play Giannis 50 games a year and get away with it. Like, he would probably want to try to go for, like, the awards and stuff and, like, push himself as much as he could.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, if you have Jalen Brunson and Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby still on that team, like, you're probably going to be...
I don't think it works if OG leaves.
Well, no, I don't... I mean, that's the question, is that...
Right?
Because that's my thing with the Sixers, where it's like, everyone keeps being like, well, why wouldn't you just give up VJ and Paul George? And I'm like, you don't understand. The Sixers have 4 good players, and that's 2 of them.
Yeah.
So, yes, you are obviously making your best player better if you get Giannis, right? Like, you're taking it from Maxey or Embiid when he's healthy to Giannis.
Like, and VJ, man. I'm
to the point, once again, I'm done with chasing the stars and doing whatever. If they want us to do Paul George, Jared McCain, every pick we can trade, including the 2 Clippers unprotected picks we have, basically, and then also throw in all of our own draft capital, sure, let's talk about it. But
do they still want to be competitive after the Giannis trade? Do they want it to be a Denver Melo situation where they're still really competitive?
This is the question that they have to ask. Is like, because, like, if you still want to be competitive, I personally, unless you can get your picks back, because the teams that own their picks are the Pelicans own their pick next year, and then the following years you have 3 straight years of the Blazers owning their picks. Now, the idea that's been floated out there by a lot of people is, what if you just sent Mikal Bridges to the Blazers and they sent those picks to Milwaukee, and then they can tank, they can control, they don't have to worry about who they get back in the trade. They could just be like, we'll be bad for a few years, we'll get a lottery pick this year, we'll suck for next year and we'll have to eat it, and then we'll be whatever. But Bridges might be able to help the Blazers, and it's like, okay, well, the reason why the Blazers were interested in him before was because Damian Lillard was basically running the team and they're friends. Now Dame's on the team, but Dame is not a factor in their, like, team building process, I don't think. And the other one that people have floated out there is not involving the Knicks, is kind of a similar situation where you could send Julius Randle and you send McDaniels to the Blazers, and then the Blazers send the picks back. They get Randle, and then they can flip Randle, or they can keep Randle if they want to be like a 9 seed in the East or whatever. And they can kind of, rebuild from there. But my thing is, if I'm the Bucks, like, if I can't get my picks back, I want to try to do a little bit of best of both worlds, where I can get both picks and a decent player.
Yeah.
Like, it might not be like a player that everyone wants, but, like, maybe it is Karl Anthony Towns. Before it could have been like Trae Young, or it could have been like, because like if there's no upside to me losing games, then I might as well try to stay somewhat competitive with this team. But if I can get my own picks back, or if I can get picks that are even more valuable than my own picks, like the far out Warriors ones, where I'm like, that's our path to being, or maybe they view the Clippers, but we own the Clippers 28 and 29 picks.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be quite bad enough for it to be like crazy upside for those. But the thing that I'm trying to get at here is basically like, if I'm the Bucks, like there might be like bad contracts that are out there that might be interesting to me. But if I can get decent picks and I can get like some prospects in the door, I'm then turning around and being like, all right, if we're trading Giannis, we're also trading Miles Turner. And by the way, I know Ryan Rollins is like 23 or 24. He's on this scam contract, and teams might be able to like pay out the ass for him. Like,
yeah.
Like we will do whatever to get that guy on that contract, just like the Mikal Bridges thing. And so I'm literally ripping it down to the studs if I'm the Bucks personally.
So who do we think ends up with Giannis at the end of the day?
If it happens in the next week, I think it's the Knicks. And if it happens this offseason, I think it's the Rockets.
Okay.
And I think
the Rockets, that's interesting, right? Because Shepard's got to be involved in it.
Okay, so here's been my whole argument. The Bucks should wait. Like the Bucks really, Giannis is injured. Like if he goes somewhere, like I wouldn't let him dictate this if I were them. I would be like, just take the rest of the season off, shut up, and we'll figure it out in the offseason.
Right. Young might not even play for the Wizards, right? Like
right.
You know,
exactly.
which is a really smart thing Washington's doing.
So the reason why I say the Rockets is because I look at that team and I go, they already lost Fred VanVleet before the season started. They just lost Steven Adams for the year. And then on top of that, they have old ass KD who's still good, but he's old. And then they have Amen Thompson, who is a crazy talent, but also very clearly has playoff flaws that will be exacerbated in the first round of the playoffs. They have Reed Shepherd, who is very clearly a young, nice, talented player that's also going to be a small guard rookie that will get targeted to death in any series against a real team.
That opening night against Oklahoma City has not left my dome. He was targeted
again last night with the Spurs.
Yeah. He was targeted every possession. He was blitzed when he needed to do a pick and roll. He was blitzed on defense. Yeah, it was rough for him.
And then you have Şengün, who is one of the more unpredictable kind of game-to-game, not super reliable, offensively tilted engine type guys in the NBA. And I just look at that team and I go, I think they're going to lose in the first round, and I think they might even get smacked if they get the wrong matchup. Mm-hmm. Like if they fall to like 7 and they have to play the Nuggets, like they're going to get wiped off the fucking floor. And then if there is a a team that can pay a lot this offseason, that has an ownership group that is like wants to win and has Kevin Durant on the team, like I think that they would be like, all right, let's talk. Like, does Amen Thompson get involved in that? Does Şengün get involved in that?
Şengün still can't shoot is really the biggest issue I see. Like,
I mean, none of their guys except for Reed Shepherd and KD shoot.
Yeah.
Even Jabari is the most overrated shooter in the NBA. Everyone's like, well, he's a shooter. And I'm like, he shoots 35% from three. Like, they don't have Tari Eason, who I've loved since the draft, is shooting 45% from three this year. And the second he comes back down to earth, then it's like, who do you have on that team that you can rely on in a playoff series, especially when you don't have a creator in Fred VanVleet and you don't have a guy who just creates like 4 extra possessions a game with his offensive rebounding in Steven Adams, like kind of your guys' version of Mitchell Robinson. Like, I don't really see a way where that team can win multiple playoff series. And if that's the expectation, we're in year 3, 4, 5 of this iteration of the team, really, and they haven't won a playoff series, and the West is only getting better. It's an arms race, and if you can go get Giannis, I think that they'll be lined up to try to go. It's either that or the Cavs completely flame out this year, and then Donovan Mitchell asks out, and they try to go get Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. Those are like the moves I can see them trying to do this off. But they're gonna make a big move in this offseason, just like they did for Durant last year.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see. Look, if the Knicks get Giannis, I see it. I get it. I would be ecstatic to have one of the greatest players of all time on my team. If that means having to part ways with OG, it makes it a really tough trade, I think. I think OG is such an ace in the hole for the team in terms of defense. He's one of the best. I think he's one of the best defenders in Knicks history, if not the best wing defender in Knicks history.
And also, like, what does the team look like if you trade OG? Because it's like,
yeah, it's so he is integral to what makes the team really good and what has made the team really what made the team a really tough out last year, and what will make him a tough out.
So let's
this
just
year.
say it's OG. Let's just say it is that, and it's OG, and you're keeping Cat in that scenario, I guess, because he makes $40 million a year. OG.
So to me, Milwaukee wouldn't accept a trade with just OG as a centerpiece, right?
Of course,
it would be OG. It would have to be OG and Cat. Like it would have to.
Or OG to a third team.
Okay.
Well, if you do OG and Cat, that's $90 million in salary. So you'd probably also have to take back Kyle Kuzma and maybe Bobby Portis.
Portis isn't bad.
Portis is fine. He's fine. I mean, he's a fine like.
Portis would actually fit pretty well with the Knicks, honestly.
If you need shooting, like if you're losing OG and Cat, you probably need shooting. Bench, like, and he's proven to be. I know he's been up and down, but like, he's a guy who can get rebounds and can make. I mean, he's a dead eye shooter. But like, what does the team look like?
I also like his attitude. I've always liked Portis' attitude. Crazy,
psycho.
Yeah, you need a crazy guy like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So you have Brunson, you have Bridges, you have. Is your starting three Hart in this scenario then, or do you go? Do you play? Yeah, you would probably be Hart, right? And
you would go
off the bench.
Yeah, probably. You would have to go. You would have to go Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Giannis, Robinson.
That's a pretty good team. Like, I mean, it's not perfect.
It's a really, really good team.
And then you would probably get Portis back in the trade.
And the Mitch thing is so big. Like, Mitch is really anchoring defensively. So, like, he's got to really anchor the defense in that way.
I think that trade depends on whether the Bucks want to get. Because there's a team out there that would just give up a bunch of shit. Like, we would probably be like, here's Paul George and 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there are other teams, I'm sure, that have even more. Like, there are guys that would just throw at the Bucks if they were to go get OG. And they don't have. OG wouldn't have as much use for them as he would have for another team that's out there.
I would really hate to give up OG. Like, I would like to give up Cat more than I would like to give up OG.
It would be very funny if it was like, here's Paul George. And I don't know if they would do that just because. I'm trying to think of what team could then turn around and trade for OG that you would be like, it's kind of similar to the Drew Holiday thing from a few years ago. Obviously, when they traded Drew and then he got flipped to the Celtics, it was like, fuck. Yeah. You would have a say over it if you're the Knicks, right? Like, because you're doing this trade the next week. The Bucks aren't doing the trade and then flipping the guy. Like, it's like, everyone knows what the framework of the trade is before. Honestly, I think the only team that I would be worried about getting OG if I were you, when you consider what they would have to give up to get OG, would probably be the Pistons.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, cool, now we have Cade and 4 elite defenders.
Yeah, exactly.
All around him.
Yeah.
And that would be a little bit scary if I were. And they need, like,
just beat them. And it was because of the heroics of Cat and Brunson. Like, we had just beat them. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say, the 2 teams that I would probably be a little bit worried about if I were you getting him would be the Pacers and the Pistons.
Yeah.
But the Pacers you wouldn't have to worry about until next year.
Right.
So that's whatever. And also, I don't even know if they, like, the salary they would have to give up and stuff, like, it probably wouldn't even work. But there are teams out there that would definitely, the Lakers would probably try to overpay for him. The Warriors would probably try to overpay for him. Like, he has these 4s that can play the 3 and the 4 that are just, like, good shooters, great rim protectors, can switch on defense. Like, I think that they are one of the more valued kind of players. Now, if you can keep OG and the trade is Bridges, Cat, that is like, I think that's the championship team where it's like you could put OG at the 3 and then you just whoever at the 2, fucking Josh Hart, or even go small with Deuce. If you keep Deuce in the scenario, like, that's the thing where it's like your front court is Mitchell Robinson, Giannis, and OG. That's like a crazy combination of defense and rebounding, and that's the exact kind of front court I would want to build around Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I think so too. But again, OG is like one of my favorite players on the team. Like, I would really.
That's how I feel about the VJ thing. Where I'm like,
really hate to lose him.
They'll probably never win. I don't care. I don't want to trade VJ. Like,
yeah.
I've done this before. I don't like. Yeah, cool. Maybe the Knicks win the championship, or the Warriors, or whoever gets him. Maybe
Look, if we want a title with it, then yeah, I'm down. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, if we got that Milwaukee title in 2020 or that Dallas title in 2011, like, fuck it.
Do you think the Bucks fans give a shit about all the draft picks they gave up for Drew Holiday?
No.
Because they won the championship with Giannis. Yeah.
But then if you don't win and you're stuck, kind of, it's...
That's what if Kawhi doesn't hit the shot timeline, where it's like you took. Although the Kawhi thing wasn't even really a risk.
No, it wasn't a risk at all. DeRozan's not that good. You know what I mean? People think DeRozan's like what Dylan Brooks said about DeRozan the other day. People were really upset because everything Dylan Brooks says always has a little bit of a asshole kind of. He
was right though.
He was right. He sounded like a jerk, but he was right. Like he
was being a dickhead, but that's kind of classic. That's classic.
Yeah, that's Dylan Brooks. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was right.
DeRozan is ultimately one of the more talented players that you can't win a championship with, and that's fine. Not everyone is like, there's only a handful of these guys throughout NBA history.
He's like the most talented loser you probably will ever see in NBA
and he still made $300 million in his fuck. He's chilling.
Yeah, and he's also just like one. If you're someone who like, if you're a Hooper's Hooper, or you're someone who like really is like a basketball,
one of the most aesthetically
pleasing players you'll ever watch. Yeah, he's got great footwork. He's really fun to watch. He's like really really fun to watch. I think he's a better distributor than he's ever really given credit for. He's
the most fun version of him was that Bulls year a few years ago, where it was just like, we got this like resurgence where he's hitting all these tough shots and he's kind of putting together the playmaking stuff that he learned with the Spurs. And it's funny because I saw some people trying to negatively say this about Jaylen Brown's season that he's had with the Celtics this year. And I'm like, yeah, but those guys, like, they play their, like, Jaylen was good enough and talented enough to fit in with the Celtics and like but all of those guys dream of having their own team and having the season that Jaylen has had this year, where it's like, I'm the best player on a good team and I can basically control the offense. I can have my moment and stuff. And like, he's had every other accomplishment you could ever have. He's made All-Star games, All NBAs, Finals MVP, whatever. I guarantee you this is his favorite season of his career.
Oh, sure. Definitely.
Not even a
just
question.
The way he's been talking. Also, the way he's been talking, during the streams. Yeah, no. This guy is like, he's loving it. When Tatum comes back, he's gonna try to shove him in the back or something. It's all about Eve. Like, it's like.
I've been thinking like that next season, like 2018, 2019 Celtics all over again.
I have never been convinced that those two even like each other. I've never been convinced.
No, I think it's like the Eagles thing, where it's just like the talent wins out sometimes, and you can overcome whatever personal differences or like liking each other, like with AJ Brown and Hurts, who actually, funny enough, were best friends before they played together.
That's really funny.
Then they kind of started to hate each other.
Hurts is now, like, I actually have to play with Hurts. He gets less cool when you actually have to play with him.
The first year they loved each other because of the first 2 years, because AJ was getting his numbers, they were winning games, they made it to the Super Bowl, they were like. And then the third year, like, things started to fall apart a little bit. Like, we went more of a run-heavy offense,
which was the right move.
Yeah, Saquon has this ridiculous season. Like, I think most teams would have done that. And the passing game regresses and it doesn't really show off. But it is so. I think you can overcome all of the bullshit when you have KD and Steph, when you have Kobe and Shaq, when you have eventually it has its limit. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, but I genuinely they can say for the cameras, especially Jaylen can say for the cameras. They asked him who his 5 favorite players were in the NBA to watch, and he was like Ant, SGA, Maxey, like all these dudes, whatever, didn't name Tatum. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you're telling me that there isn't a little bit.
He's kind of right. I mean, look. I mean, as an objective basketball watcher, you know what I'm saying. I don't really love watching Tatum either. I will say I do like watching Tatum better than I like watching Brown. because I do think that he's just
depends on what night of Jaylen Brown you get, though.
That's true.
Because
I think Tatum's more fluid. Tatum's more fluid. You know what I mean? Like his body's a little more fluid and it's a little more lean. And I think Brown's like very herky jerky even at his best. He's a little bit of more of a bruiser.
My favorite Jaylen Brown games, though, are the ones because he's kind of the ultimate. Maxey's a little bit like this too. Some people kind of thrive on when everyone's doubting them and is like, fuck you, I'm going to show up. There was a game, I want to say it was against the Bucks, funny enough, in the playoffs in 2022, where Jaylen had this terrible game one. He turned the ball over a ton. He missed a bunch of shots. Like Jaylen Brown disaster class in the playoffs that he has every once in a while. And then he came back in the next game and he made like his first like 9 shots. And I was like, no, this dude, like, I don't care what analytics say.
Yeah.
I want that guy on my side when it's like game 7 of the finals or whatever. Like, and yeah, there are going to be some seasons where, and that's kind of funny enough. I know he's probably not quite on the level of talent of these other guys, but like, that's how I've always felt about Jalen Hurts, where I'm like, yeah, I don't care that Jaylen is inconsistent and doesn't have the most arm talent and isn't fucking, Matthew Stafford or whatever. Like, when it's the biggest game of the year, I'm not worried that Jaylen is going to show up and legitimately give us a shot to win the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and I do think that genetic makeup with some of these dudes gets overlooked, where it's like, sometimes the moment is too big even for the most talented players, and it never feels like it is for those guys.
Brunson, one thing I will say about Jalen Brunson, I don't particularly enjoy a lot of what comes with Brunson's success, which is this kind of KIF culture, New York frat bro type of culture that really comes with it. Yeah. But I never will have to worry about Jalen Brunson not showing up in a playoff game. Never. And that guy's a psycho. Especially. Yeah, that guy's a maniac. Yeah. Like that game 4 against the Celtics, he was incredible. There's so many games this past playoff that Pistons series we don't win. If that game 6 when he just took it over at the end, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is when you're
Sixers series, he was amazing that whole series.
Well, the first 2 games he was not amazing.
No, he wasn't. But that game from 3 to 6, the third game was...
I was so mad because I was like, we're down 0-2 and Jaylen Brunson missed 25 shots in both of these games. We couldn't get a fucking rebound and we kept... And then the game 2 thing happens. The thing that I took from that series with Maxey having his moment in that series, I was like, I don't give a fuck what happens.
That game 5 was great. Yeah,
I was like, because after game 2, if we had lost in 5 and Maxey didn't do that, I would have been like, just blow up the fucking team at this point. There's nothing to look forward to. Joel's done. I don't care about the cap space. We wasted his whole fucking window and whatever. And then you get the game 5 and you're like, all right, well, this is something to build on. And the Dante game where we couldn't get a rebound and Dante hit the fucking shot.
Yeah.
And then of course I classically had game 4 where I went viral.
Get the goddamn rebound.
Get a fucking rebound. I don't even feel that way when I watch them anymore because I know they can't. When we play a good rebounding team, I'm like,
who was the main culprit with the rebounding that game? There was someone who was the main guy who just really wasn't putting the body on anybody.
Okay, so I love Maxey and Embiid, but that's probably, and especially injured Embiid, post knee Embiid just does not move quick enough to get to rebounds. That's probably their weakest skill, and that's why it's tough for us when they're just not really. Maxey's for a point guard, Maxey's fine.
Yeah.
And when Embiid before the injuries, he was decent for a big. But it's the combination of those two having that as a weaker skill, and then we put all these guys around them, Kelly Oubre, Tobias Harris, that are just bozos.
Yeah. Oubre was the one. Yeah, Oubre was the.
Oubre never boxes out. Oubre to this day. Honestly, I think if Oubre got hurt this year, we would have a better chance of beating the Knicks in the playoffs.
He's just the type of player.
He didn't play the 2 games we beat you guys.
Yeah.
And everyone kept being like, why are the Sixers playing so much better against the Knicks? And I'm like, because Kelly Oubre isn't playing, and they hide Jaylen Brunson on defense in the corner on him because no one thinks that he's a threat to shoot and score. And he also doesn't box out. So it's one of those things where it's he drives me crazy sometimes, but I will say this much. He's another guy that even if I get mad at him, he shows up every single night. He busts his ass. Like, it is not for lack of trying. It is literally things that hold him back from, like, it's just like
processing. We talk about it all the time. Processing speed. Some of these guys, they don't really process it all that easily.
We say, I'm, as someone who was like this on a basketball court whenever I played, like, I have a really bad ADHD. So Kelly, I always joke that Kelly just needs an Adderall script. And like if he had an Adderall script, he would be like, because if I would play without any sort of stimulants, I would be like forgetting to box out, letting loose balls go by me. Like, I would kind of lose my man. I would get back cut all the time. Like, Kelly, that's Kelly, but Kelly's also looks like a model and has a 7'4" wingspan and is a crazy athlete. So he gets, all this money in the NBA.
Yeah. One thing about, like, obviously LeBron has all these, like, physical and insane physical gifts, but he's also, like, so autistic and so ridiculously focused.
Locked in.
Yeah. He's just, like, so autistic. Jordan was like that too. Jokic, yeah.
Jokic is like the most obvious one where it's like, because you could go two ways with the people on the spectrum, where it's like, sometimes you'll get the people, like, I'm someone who is like just like not motivated at all. And like, I only find motivation in things that I really give a shit about. And that is kind of can be a shortcut. I think of Jared Allen, for example. Jared Allen is someone who clearly is somewhere on the ADHD autism spectrum.
Yeah.
And he is someone who is really talented and good, but in the big moments, it's just like a little bit too bright for him. Like you said, the lights were a little bit brighter than I expected.
They're too bright.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn off the lights.
And then you have the other guys on the other side where it's like the higher the stakes get, the more I'm locking the fuck in. The LeBrons, the Jokic's that are just like, this is what I'm built for. This is why I'm like Kyrie.
Jordan was like that too. He just was he just was like, I'm just built for this in a particular fashion. It's Yeah, we'll see. Look, we'll see what the Knicks do if, like, I think if they got him,
it's Giannis or bust at this point. On the deadline, because the Sixers will probably make like a move where it's like, oh cool, we got like a role player that's like not really gonna make a difference for us. But the Knicks, it's kind of like, if you don't trade for Giannis, you're just waiting until the offseason to get.
What are you doing?
At one point, I was like, maybe they could trade for like Najee Marshall, or they could trade for like
Marshall's not bad.
Like a bench wing or something. But now I'm like, if you know you have a chance to get Giannis, you shouldn't do anything.
Yeah. Here goes nothing, right?
Okay, before we get out of here.
Well, we got to talk about Ye right quick.
Okay. If they trade for Giannis, what do you think? Championship this year? Let's say they keep OG, they trade for Giannis.
If they keep OG, I'll go championship. Yeah. I think that's enough to get past the Pistons, because we would have the best player on the floor if healthy.
Sure.
And that's
the rest of the East. I wouldn't be worried about.
I wouldn't be worried about the rest of the East. We'd have the best player on the floor. I don't consider Detroit like a necessarily incredibly difficult place to play or something. You know what I mean? They don't really have, like,
they should trade for Michael Porter Jr. or Andrew Wiggins. Those are the two guys I want them to.
That would be so funny if they traded for Porter Jr. Porter Jr. can really score, man.
Yeah, and like he wouldn't fuck up the fact that like they love the rebounding, and like
Porter Jr.'s also played for a championship team. Like he's like he actually He's not some like empty stats guy. He's played for a championship team. He's kind of like Powell in a way where it's like he's been on the title team, but he's actually now finally been giving the big minute so he can fill up the stat sheet a little bit more.
The difference for him versus most of these guys that I view as kind of like, yeah, you can get buckets, but what else can you do? Is like he's actually genuinely a really good rebounder, and rebounding has turned out to be an incredibly important skill in the contemporary league.
NBA, yeah.
It's just like everyone is just fucking dying to get rebounding right now.
I wonder if was a player who I wonder, like, if Melo was in this contemporary NBA, he'd be a much better rebounder than I think he was when he played, because he don't think he really cared that much about it.
I was gonna say, did he give a shit?
He didn't really care much about it, but I think he would care more now about rebounding.
He definitely had the tools to be.
Yeah.
He was a really good athlete. And the thing about Melo, I remember the one season he had with the Knicks, he had like he shot like 60% on pull-up jumpers. The thing, and he didn't get a ton of opportunities, but the thing about those guys that are good at those tough shots, DeMar's kind of the outlier in that, like, he's the only tough shot maker I've ever seen be a playoff dropper, because those are the only kind of shots you get in the playoffs. Where when the best guys at performing in the playoffs are the ones that can make the toughest shots in the regular season. And that's part of the reason why I feel like in this era, I'm interested to see what Melo looks like in that context. The other question I was going to ask for you, what do you think happens if they don't make that trade?
If they don't make the trade, I think they're a Eastern Conference Final exit. I think if they don't make the trade, I think they're an Eastern Conference Final exit. I don't think they recover from Cat being frustrated that he's in trade talks. I don't know if they recover from that. I don't know if I think the rest of the league has caught up to some of the guys on the bench that were having success earlier in the season. I don't know if that changes. And I just don't know if Robinson can really stay healthy. I'm always scared about Robinson not staying healthy. And so I would say Eastern Conference Final loss. Valiant effort, but Eastern Conference Final loss.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, how do you think Mike Brown's working out? There are some Knicks fans who are now really complaining about him. I thought the Draymond thing was a bad look.
That was stupid.
It was not a good look. No. It really was not a good look. I didn't appreciate it at all. I have my issues with Cat. I did not appreciate it at all. Tibbs would never carry on with like that in front of there's just little things that I just didn't really like about that.
I agree. No, and they say that Mike Brown's a super nice guy and he gets along with everyone and stuff, but at a certain point you do have to stand up for your player. That's your guy. You can't really. I know you have this great relationship with Draymond.
Talking during the game too. It just was a little Draymond's openly talking shit about one of your players, openly. Yeah.
And terrorizes him all the time.
Bothers him. Gets really under his skin in a very, very personal manner. So I didn't love that stuff. Look, I think if they get Giannis, I think they'll win it. If they or they'll make it rather. They'll make it for sure. If they don't, it's an Eastern Conference Final loss.
I think Mike Brown has done. I mean, you guys won the NBA Cup. You guys had a little bit of a dip after that.
That's a schedule thing. I always thought it was a schedule thing personally. Sure. That cup stuff is it's tough. Yeah.
My whole thing is I genuinely am. People give me shit for this because I always say this, and it's not. I don't want people to take it literally, but I say coaching doesn't matter. I really do think that your roster and your best players performing at their highest levels when it matters is the only thing that truly does matter when it comes to winning a championship. Now, there are tactical advantages that a coach can bring you. There are different systems and schemes that can maximize players but ultimately what gets you over the top is your best players fitting well together, your best players play and nowadays having more of an identity and role players that fit perfectly around your best players. And the Knicks kind of seemingly figured that out, but have hit a little bit of a wall. But I don't know. I think Mike Brown's a good enough coach to win with. I wouldn't really worry about. I don't think he's going to be the reason they lose.
Yeah, I you're probably right. I think so as well. I think.
And Tibbs is a great coach.
Tibbs is a great coach. He's just
Tibbs has his little isms that drive you insane. Every coach, every fan base has this with their coach. Even fucking Spo and Kerr now. There aren't coaches that are innocent from it.
Tibbs is a little unlucky in a way where he's always had rosters that have been flawed. But I think he exacerbates that with the way he manages.
He's DJ Khaled.
I know,
he's suffering from success.
He really, his mindset is I have to win this game mindset. So he's not focused on getting these guys in position. So maybe down the road they know how to play with each other a little bit better, right? So you're not just putting Landry Shamet into the fire during Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You're not just putting Delon Wright into the fire in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You're giving these guys different areas in the regular season, different spots, so that when the playoffs happen, they know how to play with one another. He just
it's funny because Nurse and him are similar in how much they play guys minutes, the defensive, they're we want to play grind them out defense and cause turnovers and get the team running and whatever. But they actually are very different in that Nurse will throw out every single player on the roster. He will, I know people only see the minutes and they think, oh, he only plays 5 guys. He really does, to my own personal detriment. He will throw out Justin Edwards and Jabari Walker and who, like, he gives everyone except for literally maybe one or two players on the team a fair shot, and he tries every combination and tries to learn from that for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, he talks about it. And like, I think that part of that might be why his teams have maybe punched above their weight a little bit in playoff series that they don't have a chance in.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that and I understand that, but I also think that there's a medium, like a happy balance between what Tibbs does and what Nurse does, which is like, you have to have lineups that make sense.
Yeah.
And like, and like give guys breaks and different and have some versatility and some flexibility, because their styles are so rigid, even though they're a little bit opposite, where it's like, Nurse, how do you gather any information from these lineups? And Tibbs, how do you like not basically kill your players and overextend them so much by just playing like 7 players like it's the playoffs?
Right. But I've also, like, I also feel for him in a way where, like, okay, if Randall's ankle's healthy, maybe they're a little bit better than Miami, right? Like, but also, like, he was out coached by Spo, who's like one of the greatest coaches we'll ever see in the NBA, right? Like, I think a lot of, I don't think he's always been blessed with the greatest rosters.
Firing a coach after making the Eastern, I went back and I listened to our episode to see how I originally felt about it. Because once they hired Mike Brown, I'm like, this will be good. Like, they'll figure out a way to, like, whatever. I went back and I listened to when they first fired Tibbs, and I was like, you are basically so close to, if Aaron Nesmith and Halliburton for a 2 to 3 minute stretch don't become prime Steph.
That's a 7 series.
That's a 7-game series, and they fired him before Game 7 would have even been played. They fired him like 2 days later. I think it was 3 days later was Game 7. Like, you would be playing in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and at home, and at the time, we had thought that the Thunder were just going to cruise,
and it looks like we would have had a chance against the Thunder.
You definitely would.
Definitely.
Like, I think there's a chance.
You can make a case the Pacers win Game 7 if Halliburton doesn't hurt his Achilles.
Yeah, and like, so that's the thing that ultimately what it comes down to for me is, when you're that close, I don't think firing the coach is the thing that gets you over the top. To me, you fire the coach when it's like the Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr situation, where it's like, look, we've tried, we're losing in the first round, like, we just need a fresh approach.
So it's just like Jackson, like, straight up, like, Jackson is not really that good. Like,
sure,
yeah, Jackson was like not a good coach.
Yeah. But like, Tibbs was the guy that got you to the point where you were like, he was part of this whole thing. Like, he helped establish what it was to be like the Knicks in this era, and like got them to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years. Like, I don't know if there's any other team in the NBA that would have fired him after that. Maybe the Lakers, but the Lakers also wouldn't go that long without getting to the conference finals, because they just luck into shit all the time.
I know. Yeah, I don't mind that they fired Tibbs. My biggest thing was like, look, you got to hire the right guy. Fine if you fire Tibbs, got to hire the right guy. We'll see if Mike Brown's the right guy. I don't think there's that much of a difference between them in terms of coaching. I think Brown's willing to try.
It won't matter.
It probably won't matter. But Brown, I think, was willing to try things that they wanted him, that the front office wanted Tibbs to try to do. So look, whatever. I only don't think it'll matter that much. We'll see what happens. All
right, you want to get an episode of 808 and Parson?
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk.
J. Cole dropped. No, I'm kidding.
No, so actually, I have this Substack thing coming up about Cole. Like next week, I'm gonna do a back and forth with another writer who's very fair.
The most talented loser, like DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, and so like, my biggest thing about Cole is, like, he's a popular rapper, yes, but he's also a very popular punching bag.
Yo, definitely.
Yeah. So it's
DeMar-esque.
Yeah, it's very complicated to talk about, because yes, he is obviously really popular. He sold millions of records, but a lot of people online, like, if 5 million people are talking about J. Cole, 3 million are buying the records, 2 million are burning the records. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
for sure.
It's like but like, no one can seem to be normal about it. Like, about him, he inspires a lot of, like, love and hate, but no kind of, like, fixed center.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's also that's kind of the way for him in the industry too, where it's like some people really love J. Cole, and then some people are like, that guy sucks.
Yeah. Well, so it took him, I think, years. We agree on this. Like, it took him years to understand what he was good at in terms of making music and what he was bad at.
Definitely.
Like, the Born Sinner, Silent Story stuff, that shit sucks.
Yeah, I agree. I got a lot of shit for when I did my rankings. I put both of those in, like, the worst. Like, people were like, they love Born Sinner. And I'm like, Born Sinner is what he thought he should have made. And same with the previous album. Now, Born Sinner is probably a more listenable version of that, where it's like, it's a little bit more kind of at its core what he enjoys and what kind of he grew up on. Yeah. And he knows that music very well. But it's ultimately it's a safe album. And it's not an album that really kind of, like you said, explores what makes him a decent rapper in the first place, which is like what he became over the next few albums and mixtapes, where it was like he became a little bit more introspective. Mm-hmm. He became a little bit more... I think he just became better as a producer in general.
Yes,
like,
yes.
I think he explored more sounds that weren't just like run-of-the-mill, this is a hip-hop beat style thing.
Smaller, too. His scope in the world was smaller, and I think thus more personal, which is what he should be going for. Like, For Your Eyes Only, I think, is the peak.
I think it's a great album. Yeah. I actually really enjoy that album a lot. And then I think that Forest Hills Drive is just what he should have always made for his debut album, where it was just like, it has the hits, but it also has a little bit of the emotional depth, and it has a little bit of range for what he can do, but it's not like, here's the song for the club, here's the song for the women, here's the song for the radio. Like, it's more like, here's what I wanted to make and say. And sometimes it comes across as, you know, he can be a little bit, he could still be striving for attention of others and approval of others on the album. But that is kind of who he is. He's the everyman rapper. I've talked about this before. The reason why your coworker likes J. Cole is because they listen to him and they don't think he's above them. Yeah. And a lot of our favorite rappers are performers, and they are amazing at what they do, but they're levitating on a different plane of existence than J. Cole, who is just like an everyman guy who's making music that a lot of people, that's palatable, that a lot of people can enjoy, that is not groundbreaking by any means, but ultimately is something that is, it appeals to a wide range of people because a wide range of people feel like they could be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone that I like the Kendricks, the Futures, whoever, even some of my more niche favorite rappers, are all doing things that I could never dream of doing in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a thing that they have lyrically where they're just like, this is mesmerizing stuff. Whereas
even beyond just like the lyric stuff, like there's almost like a psychedelic element of just the way they can convey sounds. Yeah. That is like something that I would never hear on a J. Cole album. And I don't want to hear on a J. Cole album because I don't think he would be good at it. Yeah. But Ye was kind of ahead of his time in this. Because I don't know if you saw the recent, I'm sure we'll talk about like the apology and stuff, but he's ridiculous. But the one thing he did bring up on that was that they discovered that he had brain damage from, which they think goes back to the car accident that they had never discovered. And I do genuinely think that from just my very limited scope and knowledge on like brain injuries and how people function after a brain injury, I do think there's a level of like you're in your own kind of world that can make you see things so differently and can make you make really interesting creative art in a way that you wouldn't have had you not had that. And I think that it was always so weird to me that he was never into drugs. Yeah. If you listen to his music, it sounds like someone who is like, had like some sort of psychological journey. I know more recently he struggled with like the, what is he addicted to? Laughing gas? Yeah. Like he struggled with his own stuff, but it's not stuff that is like, I would think that like listening to his first few albums, like he probably took MDMA or LSD or DMT or shrooms or no, he was sober through all of that. And he just had such a different perspective from that first album really up through Pablo. That is probably unlike anything we'll ever see again for better or for worse.
Yeah. I mean, look, whatever, like the apology, like who knows? Who knows? I would love to see.
Impossible to predict.
Look, it's impossible. I think that I guess he's like 45 now, 46. I highly doubt he drops another masterpiece again. Like, or it's like it's hard. 444 comes out. Jay's like, I don't know, whatever. He's like 47 during 444. I don't consider that album a masterpiece. That's probably as best as an old school rapper could do. An old rapper could do.
I agree.
Right? Like it's probably the best an old rapper could do.
It's that and the Tribe reunion album are my two favorites, probably.
Yeah.
And that's a collective effort. That's not like, that's Q-Tip and all them like coming together to make shit. Jay genuinely was just him.
Yeah, that was an orator rap record from a 47-year-old. It's probably the best you can do in hip hop for an old guy. I don't think Kanye is going to be able to do that at his age, but I do think that the rap society at large could use a healthy Kanye West to speak on things and to give ear to younger artists. And he is such a special.
He was that guy for so long.
Yeah, he was such a special artist in a lot of ways because he cared about innovation. None of Ye's records sound the same. Like Dropout's different than Registration, which is different than Graduation, which is different than 808s, et cetera, et cetera.
And even in between those albums, like he would like hop on like a Jeezy.
Oh, that put on remix verses. I mean, the put on verse, not the remix. The put on verse is like one of the greatest guest verses that of our lifetime.
And it was experimental too for like a mainstream rap feature remix to go in and just
record, right?
Record and just go in and like heavy auto tune and just rap about like all of the problems in his life. And that kind of became a little bit of his specialty from that point on. But I think even beyond that, like a few years after that, it seems like it should be like decades and eons apart to go from like College Dropout to Put On remix to like the Chief Keef like I Don't Like remix on Cruel Summer. But like he was always had his ear to the streets in a way that didn't seem like, and Drake at times can seem like very convoluted and very like I want to be ahead of the curve.
Calculated, exactly.
Right. But with Kanye, it genuinely felt like, oh, this is what's going on in Chicago. This is what's going on in Atlanta. This is what's going on in New Orleans. Like, I want to be at the forefront of this, and I want to be a part of this and help advance this.
King Louis on Yeezus is like incredible. It's crazy.
Yeezus is like so underappreciated, and I know that it's become the popular opinion to have
Yeezus
that now.
is amazing.
You posted "Hold My Liquor" the other day, and I was like, "This is like literally the greatest song I've ever heard."
It's so incredible. It sounds drunk. Like the song sounds drunk. Like dude.
If you've never had like a real depressive episode, I don't think you can appreciate. Like I had a true depressive episode in like 2018, probably 2019, around the time we were making the podcast, but a little bit after that. And I just remember listening to Hold My Liquor and being like, I don't think anyone's ever captured what it feels like. And all of this shit that's happening around him, the swirling of the Chief Keef refrain and the Bon Iver vocals, and this feeling of just like something inside you needs to get out. He's just always on edge throughout that whole album, the whole album really, but that song in particular is kind of like the breaking point of everything.
When he's not ranting about like the fashion world, the powers to be of the fashion world, whoever they are. The European powers of the fashion world not letting him in. When he's not ranting about that, the album is about the fact that he's about to be a father and he's freaking the fuck out about it.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, dude, when he's talking about like I'm in it, like that record is all just about like his fears about monogamy and
Like, and then Bound 2 being the outro.
I'm so scared of my demons. I go to sleep with a nightlight. Like it's like a lot of what it's about is this pre-fatherhood anxiety of like Blood on the Leaves is about. It's a lot of what Blood on the Leaves is about is like this idea of till death do us part, unholy matrimony, right? Like he's struggling with this idea of like I need to be like monogamous to to Kim and this baby that's I'm about to have.
Wow. I'm kind of getting chills right now. I didn't even put any of this together. Dude, and I've listened to that album 100 times.
Dude, like it's like.
But the reason you don't have to why that album's amazing is I don't even half of what he says doesn't even matter. It's just the feeling of the album.
Yeah. He's got some great verses. He's got great verses on that record.
Yeah, oh my god, dude, the intro to fucking On Site, like because I didn't get On Site when it first came out. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Sounds like a fucking
People thought their
garbage
record. People thought the record was like fake, because it was
I
like
thought it was fucked up.
Yeah.
I literally, I remember listening to it on laptop speakers and thinking my laptop was breaking.
Yeah.
And being when it first leaked.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And then over the years, just the ferocity that which he raps on the whole first half of that album, really, where he's just kind of just going and going. And the outro to New Slaves, which is just, I mean, the Swedish sample that he never got cleared,
Yeah.
and Frank singing, and this whole build up to the.
Yeah.
It is filled with these moments that cannot be explained in a way that so few albums are. And like, I remember, I want to say it was Lou Reed reviewed that album. There was I think it was Lou Reed. And he talked about like, no, this is what the human experience is. And like how I think he specifically talked about in Hold My Liquor about like how it feels to be the bad guy, basically. And how anyone who doesn't get this just has not sat with it long enough, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about that album over time, where it's just like, oh, I just didn't sit with it long enough and I didn't let it be. And like the first song, he talks about it. He'll give you what you want, but it may not be what you need.
Yeah. But in time, you'll see it. Like in time, I mean,
you'll get it, and I did.
Like New Slaves, he has a line on that record where he goes, they're probably all in the Hamptons, bragging about what they made. Like, he had such an understanding of the powers to be of this world and how, like, evil it all is.
Yes.
And so, what's complicated is the move to, like, not move, but, like, him being unwell, what have you, or whatever the reason, and then becoming kind of like a little bit of a Nazi sympathizer. It almost feels like eerie, but it also kind of feels like, obviously, of course, that's the way it went. Like, if you have so much ambition like that guy has, but also an understanding of how the world actually works, and like, like what is he? Meanwhile, the DEA team up with the CCA. They trying to lock niggas up. They trying to make new slaves.
Sure.
See, that's like probably on prison. Gets their piece today. They probably all in the Hamptons bragging about what they made. Like that bar.
Hamptons.
Yeah, it's like he really understands and understood like exactly the way white supremacy works in this country, and all the different stuff that's involved with it. From Israel, from Trump himself, from like just all that. Like he really got it.
But the thing where he got fucked up, and where he and look, he's his own man. He has his agency. Like he should be blamed. He came out with a song called fucking Hail Hitler.
Yeah, I know. It's so sick.
At the end of the day, there are things that he did.
He's a Nazi sympathizer at the end of the day.
Exactly.
He can't go.
He flat out said he was a Nazi at one point. So it's one
he can't go back from that.
Exactly.
That'll always be on his record. Yeah.
I think it's just a stain on kind of everything. But he was a mentally ill person who got manipulated by a group of people that were, fucking R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. Like, literally, Charlie Kirk was in his ear, and you had some of the most cynical, fucked up, I don't know who led him to those people, but they eventually got in his circle and told him whatever the fuck he wanted to hear and pointed at certain people to blame. And like you said, that knowledge that he had about capitalism and white supremacy and stuff has something that we've seen time and time again. It just gets weaponized.
Yeah.
And it turns into something far more cynical, and it turns into something that is just very contradictory at its core, which is like these white rich capitalists who are using their power, status, and fame to then flip it on its head and blame certain minority groups. And basically we become this, not saying this just because Kanye has his own, issues with bipolar and all that stuff, but we become like a country that is like mentally broken, and we can't. Have you seen Eddington? Have you seen that?
Yes,
movie?
I did. I talked about it with Josh Lewis. Yeah, on the pod. Yeah.
So watching that movie, it just feels like there's nothing, and the thing that I think that he did really well in that movie was that like we don't have now, I'm not saying that like these central arbiters of information and truth were ever good before. Part of the reason why people seek out alternative news and media and stuff like that is because all of those things were owned by corporations, and they were, kind of spewing out their own propaganda to uphold the system and stuff like that. But at the same time, now it's just this, like, we have a million different sources and a million different opinions and all of this information, and it's confusing, and all of those cynical right-wing fascist people use that to their advantage because they don't give a fuck about, political correctness, and they don't give a fuck about staying in line. They can break shit, and it breaks people's brains, and it takes advantage of people that are genuinely mentally ill, and we have a lot of mentally ill people in this country.
We really do, and the Eddington does a really great job of
that aren't helped.
Yeah, and Eddington does a great job of talking about that, right? Like it's the best parts of that movie are like the conspiracy parts, the parts with the internet, the parts with the wife. And Austin Butler, who is someone who like really understands to his core, like he's crazy, obviously, but like he really is like that, and she seeks that out,
he manipulates it.
Yeah, and she seeks that out because no one's listening to what actually happened to her, which is like her fucking dad, who has a fucking painting in his house and sexually abused her, right? Like there is something about that film is a really complicated film, I think, for a lot of people to talk about because it's really not hopeful. It's like the most like
no, it is very cynical.
It is extreme, but in a good way, right? Like it's extremely like we'll never be able to this society's finished.
It's fucked.
Society's fucked. We're done.
You can tell he listens to Chapo.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. You can tell.
He's a millennial Chapo.
Yes, he does. Yeah, you can tell. I do think one of my biggest thing is the only thing is I wish that the movie, I just felt like I wish that it had more of something to say about George Floyd's murder. Mm-hmm. But what it has to say is more towards the response to it all, which I get is the more central idea of the movie. Plus, it's also this intimate look at this town itself, So he's not really...
And it's supposed to be the screenshot of America from 2020, but it's represented through, like, this majority white / Latino town that is, going through everything that everyone went through, and they kind of have, like, a fraction of America within the town. Everyone is, like, represented, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it did... I definitely... I enjoyed it a lot. Like, I thought it was a really well done movie, and I thought that it was unlike anything I've ever seen, really. Like the Western elements and
it reminds me of Citizen Roof a little bit, which is this Alexander Payne movie from 1996 where it's about
I like Alexander Payne.
It's it's about these abortion debate in 96, and Laura Dern plays this like woman he's had like 5 abortions, and like one side's trying to stop her from having it, the other side's trying to let her have it, and so they're all kind of battling each other, kind of. And that's
I'll have to see that.
Yeah.
I like Alexander Payne a lot.
Yeah. But Eddington reminded me of that a little bit. But no, I think you're right though. It's unlike a lot of movies that have come out. It's
very rare you get a period piece about the period you're basically living through.
Right? Yeah.
And I thought he did a good job and I mean the actors are just
Phoenix is great. Yeah, Phoenix is great. He's amazing in it. Yeah, he's
absolutely incredible. Everyone gives so many good performances in that movie. But no, the long and short of it is that it, like, once again, I don't think that everyone will forgive Kanye. I don't think they need to forgive Kanye. But I do hope that this, just for his own personal sake, I hope that he actually is reflective, and I hope that he has the right people around him. I'm not optimistic about that.
It
feels like
the right people around him is tough. That's always been the thing, right?
Because it's like people will just leech off of you if you're famous and you're rich, and you also happen to have these really like serious mental health issues. And like, I just hope that he can find the help that he needs, and that, whatever he is saying now is actually the truth, that it's not like, I'm doing this because I have a new album coming out.
Yeah.
Which I think he has an album coming out tomorrow. I think it's just the same album that he already released. Bully,
yep.
I don't know if...
Yep.
Which I listened to a few songs from that just because people said that I think Paul from Twitter, Paul Thompson, I think his name is, right?
Yeah, PXC, yep.
Yeah. He posted that the album was good, and I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to it. I'm not probably ever going to listen to it again, but I do just want to hear. And there was some interesting stuff on there.
Preacher Man's it's a solid track.
What was it called?
Preacher Man?
That's a good song.
Yeah, that's a solid track,
That was the old soulful vocals.
Yeah,
and,
chopped up, Chipmunk Soul, chopped it up. No.
But like good. In a different way than the old stuff was. I enjoyed that. But no, like I said, like I completely tuned out of Kanye for. I think the last album I had listened to before this one was Donda.
Yeah.
Like I didn't listen to any of the Vulture shit. Like I wasn't in for the Nazi Reddit.
Yeah.
Like fucking low hanging fruit bullshit he was throwing out there. I heard the one song that was like a crossover Carnival, and I was just like, this guy's just lost his way.
Yeah.
The Backstreet Boys song was when I was like, bro, like, what is going on? Like, what are you even attempting to make here? And obviously, I was, like I said, I completely tuned him out for so long, and I think he became just like basically like a relatively niche figure during that period because he fucking self-destructed, and he had this moment of just complete hatred and spewing a bunch of bullshit, and people got sick of it. And like, I don't know, like I said, I hope that he's doing better now, and I hope that his art can benefit from it for the next few years, because like you said, I'm not optimistic that anything is going to be forever, and that it's impossible to predict with this stuff.
Yeah, it really is. I hope he's well, and we could use him. We could use his voice in the world, his proper, well enough voice in the world. We really could use it, and he's a generational artist and one of one, and I'm hoping for him. I'm pulling for him. Me personally, I'm pulling for the guy. That guy, yes, he's made great music, but it's more than just made great music. It's like he literally changed, like his music changed the world. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's like his
opened me up to like a ton of new shit I never would have listened to.
Yeah, no, but he just he changed the possibilities and what he pushed hip hop to like deeper thoughts and deeper limits when it comes to high end fashion, luxury. He opened doors for a lot of different fan bases. He just has
Quali or Quayle. I put him on a song with Jay-Z. I'm the Catholic, but then I'm Republican, Old Navy, and
yeah, no, like
all of that the marriage that he would get between the two ends of the spectrum, not just hip hop, just like anything. Like if you sampling Steely Dan,
dude. I mean, just fucking... like the battle between materialism and social justice is something he blended together better than I've ever seen a rapper blend. Like,
so before we wrap up this conversation, one of my favorite Kanye things that I don't think I've ever had a platform since I kind of discovered it. I was probably high listening to this song and was like, oh my God. I don't smoke weed anymore, but at one point I listened to, I think it was No Church in the Wild, when he says, the opening line, the white stripe made it look like a zebra. Called that,
yeah, Coke on her black skin made a stripe like a zebra. I call that Jungle Fever. So good.
On College Dropout, he has a thing on. I want to say it's Through the Wire, where he talks about was talking about Coke and birds. It was more like spoken word. Simply putting it down. And he talks about how he doesn't want to go down the pathway of like talking about drugs and women and all that. And then the intro to No Church in the Wild, which is like this existential, huge anthemic, like I've made my way into like fame and fortune, and I've been a little bit like tainted by it a little bit, is the first line of the song that he's on with Jay-Z, who signed him to that record deal. He says exactly the Coke and Birds thing on the first line, and that's a callback to Through the Wire.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the level of shit that he was thinking on. Hey, 7 years later, I'm this made man who's seen everything, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm legitimately referencing my first ever breakthrough song when I talked about how I didn't want to be this guy, but here I am.
Yeah. So
So
crazy.
good.
Yeah, I mean,
So good.
we could talk. I could talk about Watch the Throne all day and what that album is
I
and what it's saying.
I still love. I mean, even with some of the not only the instrumentals not aging well, some of the like black capitalism businessman
But I
stuff.
will say, okay, so I really quickly, I think 444 is really bad with that stuff because the black elite and the Obama era is because of this, right? Like the black elite consciousness was allowed was different when 444 dropped compared to Watch the Throne, which is I think a little bit of a they're obviously not critiquing capitalism because they're so rich, but in Murder to Excellence, Jay says, I'm all, shout out to Will, what's up to O, we need a million more.
Yeah.
I'm all dressed up with nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
He's kind of saying, like, almost like, I don't know.
That song is so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's kind of saying, like, I don't know what to do and where to, and who to be around. And, like,
Sure.
I'm rich, but I'm, like, obviously don't want to be around, like, I'm not that rich. And then there's still not enough black people who are rich. But then when 444 drops, it's a different level of black elite consciousness because the Obama presidency has ended, and I think that is now like the black elite is here and here to stay, and so there's a little bit more of a like, where the Negro leaves, etc., that type of bullshit, and so it's like it's a little bit different compared to Murder to Excellence, which I think is
that line specifically definitely.
I think Jay is a little bit
where
like
we go from here.
Yeah, Jay's a little bit like, oh, this is kind of boring. I'm rich, but I don't know. Yeah, this is it. I'm rich, but like this is it. I did it for this, but like, where am I going? Like it's it's
he arrived on the same day that Fred Hampton died. Jay-Z and Fred Hampton, two guys, two peas in a pod.
He's such a sicko.
But that whole the
he's
level
so sick.
The level of rap, because it's funny because everyone always says, "Oh, Jay killed Kanye on Watch the Throne," and I'm like, but Jay needed Kanye to get to that. They both needed.
Jay needed Kanye to seem cool.
And also he needed, well, first off, the like a little bit of like the artiste like flair and like, because Kanye was totally tapped into like whatever the new
Fantasy had just dropped, so Fantasy like did so much wonders to Kanye as an artiste, like
for sure.
Yeah.
But like the album that Jay-Z dropped before that was Blueprint 3. Like, think about where he was at in his career. Like, he didn't need to make anything forever. Like, he was basically at the point where he was just victory lapping and like, I can make an album that's every single song's a fucking hit on this album. That's all I'm gonna care about. And then he makes this album where it's like Kanye's coming in fresh, hungry, wanting to be. Oops, did it drop out?
You're good.
Oh, that was weird. I don't know what the fuck that was. But did my mic drop out? I think my mic. All right. Well, my mic's just gonna be messed up for the rest of this. Sorry about that.
No worries.
But the long and short of it is that like they needed each other on that album because Jay wasn't rapping at the level that he was earlier in his career. And Kanye wanted to prove that he could rap on the same level as Jay. And they came with some of the best bars and verses of their career because they were just literally two guys at the peak of their powers doing whatever the fuck they wanted and made one of the most, like, probably, like, revolutionary commercial rap albums of our time, I would say.
Yeah. We'll end it here, but, like, dude, this was... First of all, this was great fun. This was
so much fun. Dude, always great talking to you.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is a long pod, so everyone enjoy it. Like this is like no, we got the boys back together. This is what I was hoping for. I cleared the whole day too. That's what I was hoping for. So
perfect.
Is awesome.
I was gonna say because I usually do 2 hour minimum on ball, so this is nothing to us.
Yeah. This is the only pod I'll ever do that's 2 hours and 40 minutes. But this is perfect. We needed to really talk about so many different things, and I'm glad you came on, man. Yeah, it
was a great time. Anytime, happy to come back on and talk and bullshit. It's always
we'll definitely do playoffs. We'll come back on for sure.
Let's get it.
Let's do it. All right, buddy.
Peace.